And with the Arabs coming into the Nile Valley, they synthesized the culture and produced Islam. We ask these African ancestors, who as part of their legacy laid the foundations for Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and Greek civilization, to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. We ask those African ancestors pulled out of Africa, taken to the hells of North America, South America, the Caribbean, maintaining the spirit of African humanity in their hearts and in their minds, and who left us this enormous legacy of struggle. We ask those Africans who resisted enslavement in the villages of Africa, who resisted enslavement in the shores of Africa, who resisted enslavement in those forts and dungeons, who resisted enslavement in the holds of those ships, who resisted enslavement when they arrived on these shores in the New World. We ask these Africans who ran into the highlands of northeast Brazil and established for 100 years the first free republic in the Americas, the Republic of Palmares, and their last great leader, Zumbi, whose spirit and sacrifice. We ask these Africans who replicated the Brazilian experience and went into the highlands of Jamaica and became the maroon-free communities. We ask these Africans who went into the backwoods of the Guyanas and Suriname and created free republic of the Suramaka and the Ajuka. We ask these Africans who went into the backwoods of Georgia and the swamps of Florida and moved with the Seminole Indians and resisted oppression. We ask these Africans who left us a legacy of struggle and resistance, the likes of which no one in the world has, to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future. We ask these Africans who created and laid for us a foundation of struggle and resistance that was passed on generation after generation, that was passed on to Harriet Tubman, who fought her way out of enslavement and became a symbol of freedom for all of us. Similarly, Frederick Douglass and hundreds of thousands of others fought their way out of enslavement. We ask those Africans who went with Boukman, Dessalines, to create the greatest revolutionary experience in the history of the world, the Haitian Revolution, leaving us a legacy, the likes of which no one else has had. We ask these Africans to be with us, to strengthen us, and give us a vision for the future.
Very, very pleasant morning to you. Welcome once again. Welcome once again. You're inside of the Africa Forum. It is Running African. Thank you very much, Talia. Walk good. At 8 minutes now after 6 o'clock. 8 minutes after 6 o'clock. My name is Kabo Ma'at Keru. My producer is Joy Morgan. We go through until 10 o'clock. That's when the Big A comes in with the Sunday Sunshine. It is Sunday, June 1, 2014. So we have come through the month of May, Child Month, heading into a month in which the emphasis is more on fathers, hopefully. June 15, I think, is Father's Day. Yeah, June 15, is it? So we take them when we get them in terms of the month and the focus of the region or the world or locally. And so in the month of June, the focus, I think, should be on fathers. As usual, we're going to pontificate on why it is not so, why it's less so than on Mother's Day and all of that. Let's just focus if we're focusing. All right, so you are inside of the Africa Forum. It's Running African, reuniting the Africa family for development, bearing witness, demanding change, developing an African-centered agenda for change and development. It's the Africa Forum. Welcome to you on the 107s. You're listening to IRI FM on 107.1, 107.2, 107.3, 107.4, 107.5, 107.6, 107.7. We've got it locked. 107.8 or 107.9. Good morning, good morning, good morning to you on the 107s. Very pleasant morning to you joining us on the internet at iriafm.net. On the continent of Africa at iriafm.net. Good morning, good morning. Welcome, you're inside of the Africa Forum. It's Running African. Good morning to you joining us on the continent of Europe. So wherever you are in Europe, good morning to you. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Continental Europe, mainland Europe, and island Europe, that would be the UK. Good morning to you. Welcome. You're inside of the Africa Forum. It's Running African. Thanks for joining us wherever you're listening this morning, wherever in the world you're listening, in the Caribbean, in Asia, wherever in the world. Thank you very much for joining us. And we're all over the social media. Thanks for following us on Twitter, for befriending us on Facebook, for reading our posts on Tumblr and the blogs when we do get around to them. Thank you very much for checking us out on Pinterest. Thank you very much for checking us out on Instagram. Hey, good morning. All right, so we are on Twitter at Kabu Ma'at Keru, K-A-B-U, Kabu Ma'at, M-A-A-T, Keru, K-H-E-R-U. Good morning to you. We're also on Facebook, Kabu Ma'at Keru Williams, Kabu Ma'at Keru Williams. Thank you very much. And so those two will do for now. If you get to Facebook or Twitter, you'll find me everywhere else. Good morning and welcome. It's a very, very sunny morning, and I think officially we should be in summer, officially. If you have seasons where you are. Here in Jamaica, we have neither summer nor winter, neither autumn nor spring. We have instead the days when what happened again? When something happens. All right, Claude McKay. 13 minutes now after 6 o'clock. Somebody's going to treat me when what happens. Or Facebook me for that matter. Right? We should just have you reciting that poem. Do you know it by heart? Can you call and just recite it without reading it? All right, well, if you can, let me know. Interestingly, we've got books to give away. So even though I don't have the book in my hand, which we'll get in a little while, if you do call and recite that Claude McKay poem without reading it, I will know if you're reading it. And then again, what if you can just grab it and read it? Because it's all about learning, so what if you're reading it? But try and recite it. We'll give you a book. One of the reparations texts that we have, edited by Professor Berrien Shepherd. And we've got a few to give away over time. Lots happening this morning, and so on the Africa Forum, as you might know, as you might have heard, the Commission of Inquiry into the assassination of Dr. Walter Rodney has resumed. And so this morning, Professor Nigel Westmass will join me on the phone lines to talk about the ongoing commission. Want to find out what has happened, what has been happening over time. And so Professor Nigel Westmass will join me this morning on the phone lines to talk about the Commission of Inquiry, who's testified so far, a little bit about the testimonies, what's emerging, and what's to come. So joining me on the phone lines this morning, Professor Nigel Westmass, Professor Hamilton College, New York. He's also Workers' Party political activist, WPA political activist, and colleague of Walter Rodney. He joins me on the phone lines. Also on the phone lines this morning, as a law student in Barbados, he heard Walter Rodney lecture and lectured for the first time, and that's him hearing the lecture for the first time, Walter Rodney, and that had a great impact on him. His memories of Walter Rodney's memories of the lecture, and also a little bit about how that lecture impacted him. Attorney at Law Bert Samuels, Pan-African Attorney at Law Bert Samuels, joins me on the phone lines this morning to talk about how that lecture positively impacted his scholarship, his way of life, his own thinking. Plus, one of the great activists, Pan-African activists, Dr. Maya Angelou, has transcended at the age of 86. A tribute to activist, poet, writer Dr. Maya Angelou this morning inside of the program. And you might have heard by now Dr. Wickham McNeil speaking about the new improvement to Jamaica's beaches that made in Parliament last week. Opposition spokesperson on tourism, Shahina Robinson, will be responding to that inside of the program this morning. She joins me on the phone lines to talk about government's plans to improve the public beaches. Also, 5 African countries have qualified for World Cup 2014 in Brazil. The African Forum is this morning beginning a special series in which we're following all African countries who have qualified for this great tournament, and that will be hosted by Roger Haspel. Sorry, Roger. By Roger Haspel, and he joins me. I did that deliberately the last time. And he joins me in the studio live to actually look at it this morning. But then, as of next week, Sunday, it will be a pre-recorded feature. Kanaka Brasilia with Roger Haspel, Concrete Haspel, on the 107s and at irefm.net. You're inside. Call me, you read it, we give you a book. We don't even have a script, so we're depending on you to ensure that you read properly, and we're not logging on to read it either. We're ensuring that you come with the correct thing and read it for us. All right, lots and lots happening in the Pan-African community, in the global community. We have been listening keenly to some of the responses and comments being made to a statement made by Damian Crawford regarding what the PNP should look like, what the PNP should act like. You know, the thing that I regret most about the statement made by Damian Crawford, now the phone is ringing, and we did say right after my preamble, but all right, so the thing that I regret, the thing that bothers me about the statement, the thing that bothers me about the statement he made is that what he's listening to the comments, listening to his argument, listening to his thinking. The shortcoming is that it's a tribalistic and a divisive commentary. One would have hoped that that commentary, instead of identifying a tribe, the PNP, or a gang, the PNP, that it would be broader in the conception, in that that's what we need to be saying to each other about ourselves as Africans, that our behavior, our presentation, our thinking should be independent, should be brotherly, should be familial. As Africans, the minute we begin to think of ourselves in that way as a tribe or as a gang, what we're doing is setting ourselves up for failure. And if this is the thinking of the youth within, and when I say youth, I mean the younger minds within the political parties, then we're in for serious trouble ahead. And what that means is that we cannot allow them to remain. Unless we want to watch ourselves and our country and our fellow Africans denigrate and deteriorate and dissolve and fragment into vulgarity worse than we are now, into tribalism worse than we are now, because we ain't seen nothing yet. Believe me, if this is how the younger minds within the political parties in Jamaica are thinking, then our future is dead. We must cry, and we must begin to cry from now, because we have heard it, we have seen it, we have experienced it. We know what's coming, even though tangibly we're not holding it in our hands, but we know that it is worse than what we currently are experiencing if we listen to Minister Damian Crawford's speech. Now, if this is the very same minister, young minister, who sees no need and no reason for Black History Month, do we understand that this is the very same minister who takes to the television screens and the radio, the airwaves, as a spokesperson of a sort, formal or not, for the People's National Party in Jamaica, the ruling party, the government? We are in for some serious times ahead. These are very rough seas, very rough waters that we're heading to. We must stop. Look at this. Heed the warning inherent in the statement from Damian Crawford, and understand what our purpose and our roles are in ensuring that we no longer continue on that path. It is not too late to make a change from tribalism and tribal politics in Jamaica. It is not too late. This is a betrayal of Africans in Jamaica by the leaders or those who occupy positions of leadership in Jamaica, and it's an ongoing and continued betrayal, continuous betrayal of Africans in Jamaica by those who occupy positions of leadership. We must at some point stand up against this kind of betrayal. This is what I regret. This is my concern about the statement, because I know that there is no place in Minister Crawford. There's no place within him. I know that. I have seen that. I've heard that. To make a statement that would embody all Africans in Jamaica, he does not have that within him to do. He has told us that Black History Month must not be celebrated, etc., etc. And he's not unique in this way in terms of politicians in Jamaica. So we must look at those in positions of leadership who understand themselves as Africans in the wider picture, who understand the purpose of leadership and the positions that they hold, who are people-centered, who don't spew words of loving poor and balancing books and balancing lives and rhetoric. This is a bag of hogwash. Do not tell us what you are doing. We know what you're doing. You are not who you say you are on either side. You are not what you say you are. You are only talking about doing, but there is nothing that you're doing for the people people of Jamaica and the African people at that. This is a betrayal. After 51, going into 52 years of independence, we are still rippled with conflicts. We're still rippled with tribalism. We're still rippled with vulgarity. We're still controlled by corruption in high places. And it is those who occupy leadership positions who we must not be afraid to blame. Because that is the thing, they tell us that we can't blame them, we must blame ourselves. Blame wish ourselves. Blame wish ourselves. What are you blaming yourself for? Are you corrupt? Are you trying to be a decent, hard-working citizen? Why do you need to blame yourself? So we've been watching that closely, and we have that clip just in case you're wondering. And I think even though we didn't plan to play it right now, and my producer tells me that we've got quite a few calls holding to read that poem. All right, let me play that clip. Let me play that clip. Minister Damian Crawford of a statement we're referring to.
So we have said generally, undoubting again is the next thing. You have to be independent. That's the basis of the People's National Party. The base of the People's National Party is that your picnic must be better than you. If your picnic is better than you, then you fail the PMP and you fail the country. So you have some people who come more PMP meeting than PTA who not let down the team. Every PMP meeting call on dead, and when PTA call on, you can't make it. We don't like you, because at the end of the day, if your picnic is better than you, the country can't better. I know bush we are developed, I know road we are developed. Sometimes you have a highway to nowhere because the people them worse off, and then you have some people say they don't want no education. What not deal with? You have some man right now going like them a slave. I walk around and have 100 picnic. All the time nobody know them a Father's Day, say me have youth. And your picnic call you a man kind don't know your name. You let down the team. All that man them where I watch them data and I let down the team. And I let down the team. So some man know I walk around like them a dance and I breed up their people, not realizing that he's a slave. He's acting like a slave. Because the man when they have family was the ones that were not slaves. It was only the slave that could say, this is my child and this is my wife. No found a bunch of women and no one don't make work. Do not let them in team. Because you can't afford it. So the child go school 3 days a week. I'm a compete with the next people will go school 5 days a week plus extra class. It means that our people will always be having to thief light. That can't be the system. Some woman don't want no work. Every Friday afraid for her to stay your phone. Because as she a call about she a go trick her man and get her money. And them things they make people look down upon certain community. We have to change that as PMP people. Because it's not just to vote every 5 years. It's a lifestyle. Where you supposed to look upon a man and say a PMP that? Or you look upon a woman and say a PMP that? So I don't know if you have an orange, you know. Call the lifestyle coming like a dirty laborite.
The overall gist, the context and the character of the statement that was made and the place that it came from. To me, I don't give two hoots about Dutty Laborite or any other kind of Laborite or PNP statement. I am more concerned that here we have a situation where a minister of government is so divisive and tribalistic that it is of no... he doesn't even stop to think for a minute that all the virtues that he would have in the PNP are virtues that we would want to see in Dutty Laborites, in Dutty PNPs, in clean Laborites and clean PNP, regardless of how you look at them. Are the virtues we want to see in our African people. And the minute you begin to divide people along these tribalistic political gangs lines, then you are one of them. You are the problem. You are the creator and the crafter of a system that will continue to have its boots in the necks of the people as you divide them to rule them. We say take back that talk of divisiveness, and we must not be distracted by the term dirty laborite or any other term. That's not what we must be distracted by. We must listen closely to what the minister has said. We must listen closely. And this is my concern. And this is why I'm even more worried than I was before. Worried, but knowing that victory is certain. A luta continua. A Victoria is certain. Now 6:37. Now I do understand that we have persons who are calling to read that poem for me, and they're going to tell me a few things. The name of the poem, the author, and read that poem. And the book we're giving away is Jamaica and the Debate Over Reparation for Slavery, a discussion paper prepared by the Jamaica National Bicentenary Committee and edited by Vereen Shepherd, Ahmed Reed, Cavell Francis, Kamika Murphy. By the way, these are the authors. All right, so we are going to go to the phone lines. We didn't even give out the numbers, but hey.
Hello?
Hotep?
Hotep?
Hotep? Yes?
Yes, I want to read the poem.
Okay, what's the name of the poem?
Nature by H.D. Carberry.
Okay, so I said Global Canaanite. Nature. That's true. I'm totally out of here. All right, go ahead. No, but go ahead. Let me hear you. Go ahead.
Nature by H.D. Carberry. We have neither summer nor winter, neither autumn nor spring. We have instead the days when the gold sun shines magnificently, the days when the rain beats like bullets on the roofs, and there is no sound but the swish of water in the gullies and the trees struggling in the high Jamaica winds. But best of all are the days when the mango and the logwood blossoms, when the bushes are full of the sound of bees and the scents of honey, when the tall grass sways and shivers to the slightest breaths of air, when the buttercups have paved the earth with yellow stars, and beauty comes suddenly, and the rains have gone.
Wow, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, what's your name?
Elizabeth Christie.
What's Elizabeth? Elizabeth?
Yes, I'm Elizabeth, who emailed us on time. Yes, it's me.
All right, I'm very happy to hear you, Liz. Thank you very much. Yeah. All right, so now I know it's you, Liz, and I have your book, Jamaica and the Debate Over Reparation for Slavery, a discussion paper prepared for the by the Jamaica National Bicentenary Committee. So it is yours.
Yes, thank you.
So and we already have your contact. Just send me a quick email tomorrow or later, and I'll as to how to send it to you, and we'll get it to you. So we have neither summer nor winter, neither autumn nor spring. But what do we have? We have instead the days when
the gold sun shines magnificently. The days when the rain beat like bullets on the roof.
Thank you very much, my darling. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right. So you know what? We can give away another one. You know, we can give away another book for another poem, right? So that was Nature, and Joy will give away one more book because I did invoke the ancestral spirit of Claude McKay. So we must continue with Uncle Claude. So if somebody would call and read the poinsettia poem. The Poinsettia poem by Claude McKay. And I know it's Claude McKay this time. Right? The Poinsettia poem. We'll take that one. And So Much Have I Forgotten. That's a poem. So Much Have I Forgotten in how many years? 10 brief years? All right, so call me and read that, and we'll give you a copy of the book, Jamaica and the Debate Over Reparation for Slavery, a discussion paper prepared by the Jamaica National Bicentenary Committee. I can just see people Googling or rushing now to find them Claude McKay poetry book and so on. All right, so we have another book to give away, and as soon as you call us, we'll take your poem.
Mosquitoes can be dangerous to you and your family. Use vape mosquito coils and vape aerosol sprays to protect your family from mosquitoes and other insects. The time by vape insecticides is
now 6:41. You are inside of the Africa Forum, Running African. And still to come inside of the program, of course, going to be speaking to Professor Nigel Westmass on the ongoing Commission of Inquiry into the assassination of Dr. Walter Rodney. And we're also going to be speaking with my good friend, Pan-African attorney at law, Bert Samuels. As a law student in Barbados, he sat in on one of the lectures by Dr. Walter Rodney. He's going to recall that lecture and rememory the impact of that lecture on his own scholarship and on his life. Also, Dr. Maya Angelou was a Pan-African activist. She was there. She lived in Ghana. She lived in Egypt. She lived in South Africa. She went back to the United States. And you'll hear more about that when we're paying tribute to assist and to work with Malcolm X just before the brother transcended, was assassinated, put it that way. And she's been involved in the grassroots as a Pan-African activist for all her life, actually. She passed, she transcended at 86. What a life she's lived. Not separating her art from her activism. And for many younger activists, I know we do pull on Dr. Maya Angelou in terms of the way her art and her activism, she was able to blend the two. She understood that they were one and the same. And so a tribute to her this morning. Also, opposition spokesperson on tourism, Shahini Robinson, responding to the Jamaican government's plans to improve public beaches. Also, our new feature, 643, you're inside of the Africa Forum. It's Running African. So have you found the poem by Claude McKay? This one on the poinsettia poem, So Much Have I Forgotten. You read that for me and we'll give you a book. Jamaica and the Debate Over Reparation for Slavery, a discussion paper prepared by the Jamaica National Bicentenary Committee. By the way, Liz, you're not eligible again. You just won. It's on the ground where AFRICOM is operating in a serious way, where the militarization of a continent of Africa is in the heart, in the belly, in the stomach, in the bowels of Africa. It's going to be difficult to change this scenario, but change it we must, or we die. Change or die. So we're going to have to be prepared. So here we are, all the way from the Horn of Africa, the tip of the Horn of Africa, from Eritrea, Ethiopia, Somalia, Djibouti, Uganda, Kenya, South Sudan, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the Central African Republic, Chad, Nigeria, Burkina Faso, Mali. Do you remember Burkina Faso? Do you realize that I'm moving across the gut, the stomach, the weakest point of Africa in terms of, remember, your stomach is the weakest part of your body, and when your stomach is sick, everything else is sick. And it explains why Africa is the way it is, in a way, because it's imperialism, it's a neocolonialism that Asajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah warned us about. With this level of American military activity in Africa, don't you think that they have more than seen the girls, the Nigerian girls who were kidnapped by whoever? Sub-Saharan nations with U.S. military present across the belt, across the middle, across the stomach, across the gut of Africa, from the tip of Africa, the Horn of Africa in the east, all the way back through the middle and northwest. This is a striking visual that you're going to have to see for yourself. My. We've got work to do. We've got to change this. All right, so we're saying that if you can call me with a Claude McKay poem, this is very spontaneous, by the way, So Much Have I Forgotten, then, and read it, we'll give you a copy of Jamaica and the Debate Over Reparations for Slavery, a discussion paper prepared by the Jamaica National Bicentenary Committee. All right, so we understand that we do have persons holding with that poem, and we want to go to the phone lines and take that poem. All right? Yeah? Okay, so you tell me to go to the phone lines.
Hello.
Hotep, my brother, Hotep.
Hello.
Yes, Hotep, how are you?
I want to recite the poem for you.
Which one? What's the name of it?
Todd McKay poem.
Right. What's the title of the poem?
So much have I forgot.
Okay, go ahead. I don't have a script, so I'm depending on you to give us everything. Are you reading or reciting?
I'm reciting the part I know.
All right, go ahead and recite the part you know.
So much have I forgotten in 10 years. So much in 10 brief years. I've forgotten what time the purple apples comes to juice and what months bring the shy forget-me-not. I've forgotten, but strange, but quite remember the poinsettias red, blood red in warm December.
That's it? Well, you're going to get a book because that sounds like one verse that is almost correct, almost perfect. So what's your name?
My name is Dolores Sutherland.
What Sutherland?
Dolores
Sutherland. All right. And where are you calling from, Dolores?
I'm calling from Monique.
All right, in St. Anne. All right.
Yes.
Hold the line for us. We're giving you a copy of the book, Jamaica and the Debate Over Reparations of Slavery, a discussion paper prepared by the Jamaica National Bicentenary Committee. And the fact that you recited that first verse from the top of your head, whether you mix it up or you nearly mix it up, is enough. Thank you very much for that. So hold the line, don't hang up. And then we're going to ask if there's anyone out there who has the entire poem, and whether you read it or you recite it, still give us a call. We'll give away another book. All right. So,
Thank you.
Okay, don't hang up, Dolores. Don't hang up. Hotep.
Greetings and good morning, Sister Andrea.
Oh, Sister Jackie, good morning. Sister.
Let me run the poem quick before my credit done now.
All right, go ahead.
All right, the song of the Banana Man.
No, that we asked for.
Oh, God, my kid.
We asked for Flame Heart.
Oh, God.
It's not the banana, but Jackie, but while you're there, just go ahead and read Tourist White Man Wiping His Face Met Me in the Golden Grove Marketplace.
Not true.
Yeah, man.
All right.
Yes.
Tourist white man wiping his face met me in Golden Grove Marketplace. He looked at my old clothes, brown with stains, and soaked right through the scent and rain. He cast his eyes, turned up his nose. He said,
Look here now, I could have gone on.
You're a beggar man, I suppose. I said, but no. Boy, get some occupation. Be of some value to your nation. I said, by God and my big right hand, you must recognize I'm a banana man. My credit had done. But we know all of it.
Okay, we have a book for you. Thanks, Sister Jackie. All right, so what happened now? We're giving books all for attempts, right? And because she couldn't help it, because that is a creditor finish, all right? She was holding that. We give her Jamaica and the Debate Over Reparation for Slavery, a discussion paper prepared by the Jamaica National Bicentenary Committee. All right, so we'd ask for Flame Heart, and we haven't got yet a full version of Flame Heart. So if you're out there and you know Flame Heart by heart, or if you have it written down somewhere right where you are and you want to read all of it for us as we head into summer, which we have neither summer, nor winter, nor autumn, nor spring, then we'll take that poem and you'll get one of the texts, Jamaica and the Debate Over Reparation for Slavery, a discussion paper prepared by the Jamaica National Bicentenary Committee, compilation by Vereen Shepherd, Professor Shepherd, Ahmed Reed, Cabell Fan.
Greetings.
Hotep, go ahead.
Greetings, Andrew Williams.
Yes, greetings. What do you have there, Flame Heart?
Yes, I have the entire poem.
All right, go ahead. Let me turn off the music so you can read. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, no problem. So much have I forgotten in 10 years, so much in 10 brief years. I have forgot what time the purple apples come to juice, and what month brings the shy forget not me. I have
all right, hang on. Let me interrupt you. You have to turn your radio off, because that is why you said forget not me instead of forget me not. All right.
Okay, sorry about
all right, so turn your radio off and start over.
Let me continue.
No. Start all over. No, hold on. Start all over again.
Start all over?
Yes.
Okay. So much have I forgotten in 10 years, so much in 10 brief years. I have forgot what time the purple apples come to juice and what month brings the shy forget-me-not. I have forgot the special, startling season of the pimento flowering and fruiting. What time of year the ground doves browns and fields and fill the noonday their curious fluting. I have forgotten much, but still remember the poinsettias red, blood red in warm December. I still recall the honey fever grass, but cannot recollect the high days when we rooted them out of the pingwing path. To stop the mad bees in the rabbit pen, I often try to think in what sweet month the languid painted ladies use to dapple. The yellow by road mazing from the main, sweet with the golden thread of the rose apple. I have forgotten strange, but quite remember the poinsettias red, blood red in warm December. What weeks, what month, what time of the mild hair, we cheated school to have our fling at top. What days of wine-trailed bodies pulse with joy, seizing up on blackberries in the copse. Oh, some I know I have embalmed the days, even the scared moment when we play, all innocent of passion, uncorrupt, at noon and evening in the flames art, beneath the poinsettias, red in warm December. And that's by Claude McKay.
Right, in the Flame Heart's shade. We were happy, so happy, I remember. All right. Well, thank you very much for finding the script, for finding the poem, and for reading it. And what's your name?
My name is Aileti.
Aileti?
Right.
Right, and where are you calling from, Aileti?
I'm calling from Augustown in Bogwalk.
All right, so guess what? You've got a book, Jamaica and the Debate over Reparation for Slavery, a discussion paper prepared by the Jamaica National Bicentenary Committee. All right?
Okay, Andrew Williams, thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much.
And actually what happened, let me let everybody know, it's my 10-year-old child. It's in our grade 5 textbook, the language art workbook 5.
Oh, okay. Very good. All right, so I can just imagine your child, saying, that's my poem, that's my poem.
And yes, she's the one who woke me up and said, Mommy, I have that poem in my book. So she went for it and bring it to me.
Oh, brilliant. I'm glad she's listening.
I said to her, Akilia, come on, read the poem. She said, no, Mommy, you read it.
What's her name?
Akilia Lewis.
Akilia. Hey, Akilia, good morning. Thank you very much for waking up Mommy to read the poem.
And actually, her birthday was on Tuesday, and the 27th of May.
Oh, and happy belated birthday, Akilia. We're born in the same month, so you know how that go. Happy belated birthday. Continue to read the book, continue to read the poems, and continue to read Claude McKay, all right? Thank you very much. Thank you, all right.
Have a blessed day.
Okay, you too. All right, we love that. We can spend the whole morning just reading poetry, couldn't we? I know. Now we want to read the poetry about the yellow flowers, dew bedecked and softly sleeping with your, now we want to talk poetry. All right. So you're inside of the Africa Forum, Running Africa. Let's see if we can take another piece from Buju Banton. But thanks again to Aldith. Read the poem for yourself. No, it's really nice. Flame Heart by Claude McKay. All right. West Mass, WPA political activist and colleague of Walter Rodney is standing by as we spend some time to look at the ongoing Commission of Inquiry into the assassination. Now, 2 minutes after 7 o'clock, as we stand by to speak with Professor Nigel Westmass on the ongoing Commission of Inquiry into the assassination of Walter Rodney. All right, he joins me now on the phone lines. Professor Nigel Westmass, thank you very much for joining us on the Africa Forum, Running African once again.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
All right. Professor Westmass, there was a break. Of course, we're talking about the Commission of Inquiry, the ongoing Commission of Inquiry into the assassination of Dr. Walter Rodney. There was a break in, of course, we're talking about the Commission of Inquiry, the ongoing Commission of Inquiry into the assassination of Dr. Walter Rodney. There was a break in the hearings, and hearings were resumed just last week.
Yes.
All right. Can you take us back as we go forward? Let's look quickly at how we got to this place now that there's a commission of inquiry. If we can do that in just a minute or two, just to give our listeners context as to what's happening.
Okay. Well, as we know, Walter Rodney was assassinated in June 1980, The regime at the time did not see it necessary to pursue an inquiry. So Brother U.C. Kwayana, a leading member of the WPA who is now in the stand, filed a private murder charge against Gregory Smith, who is a person of interest in the assassination of Army Sergeant. An inquest was held in 1988, which found death by misadventure. The WPA and the family continued to press for an international inquiry, and by 1994, the International Commission of Jurists intervened. They made a statement. They couldn't, of course, have the powers of a commission of inquiry, but they recommended an inquiry. The family continued to press, and today, in 2014, we have an inquiry into the death of Dr. Walter Rodney.
All right, and as we said earlier, now there was a break in the hearings. Before the breaks, what happened? The inquiry started. Can you give us an idea as to who testified and what were some of the main issues coming out of the hearings that have gone so far?
Okay, just to back up the commission chairperson panel. Sir Richard Cheltenham of Barbados, Senior Counsel Jacqueline Samuels Brown from Jamaica, and Senior Jairam from Trinidad. They began their first session a month and a half ago, but because of their own professional time schedules and because of the arrival of witnesses, they postponed it. So I think the pattern is now that they will postpone for a month and then resume. So, for example, we have the testimony from May 30th until about June the 6th this time around. Then there will be a break, and it's undetermined what time they will come back, but I got a hint from the discussions that they will come back around the end of June to July 6th or thereabouts. So the pattern seems to be established that they will have breaks because of the large amount of witnesses, one, and two, the professional responsibilities and time schedules of the participating commission.
Yes, all right. And so that, as we speak now, then there is another break at this moment to come back to resume at the end of June.
No, it's ongoing. Right now,
okay.
Previously to this, the crime chief, the younger crime chief testified. He's to resume. They found of this 10 files set aside in 1980 for Walter Rodney's inquiry. You only found 3 of them, so there's a big gap. So he'll resume. But after him, Reuben Gilbert and the eldest brother of Walter Rodney testified, Eddie Rodney. That was a break, and then he resumed. Eddie Rodney that was resumed a couple of days ago, and then it went straight to U.C. Kwayana, who I mentioned earlier, who is an elder. He lives in San Diego, California, but he went down to testify. He's the one who I said filed a private murder charge, and he's one of the institutional elders of Guyana who has, traveled all political parties. As a matter of fact, during the Commission of Inquiry, it came up that he wrote the party songs to the People's National Congress, the People's Progressive Party, and the Working People's Alliance at that time.
And you've been following this very, very closely, Professor Westmars, in terms of the hearings themselves. Can you tell us a little bit about what are the striking things that you see coming out, the striking issues coming out from your own personal perspective, and also professionally, because you've been on this, you're part of your colleague of Walter Rodney and also WPA political activist.
Well, just before I go to that, just to let you know that your audience know that the council, there are several council representing various strands. For example, there's counsel for Donald Rodney, who is the brother who was at the moment of the death in 1980. There's counsel for the Rodney family, a Barbadian lawyer. There's counsel for the people's represented interest of the People's National Congress, the party in power at the time of his death, Basil Williams. There's counsel for the Trades Union Congress, and there's counsel for WPA, Christopher Ram. So several people are represented. So far, though, the line of discussion coming out from both counsel and from the people who sit in the witness box are that, their associations with Walter Rodney, the context in which, the time in which Walter Rodney was killed, in other words, the prevailing political, social, constitutional and economic situations in Guyana at that time in 1980. Lines of questions come up about the issue of the technology of the time, the alleged walkie-talkies, the issue of which police and military personnel were around at that time and who could have, co-opted it. And so there are various strands of testimony coming out which are not necessarily, it's not fully trashed out as yet. What we have seen is the opening round. Mm-hmm. I anticipate, given my sense of how it's proceeding so far and the fact that more counsel have been added, that this will go into next year. I don't think it will be finished this year. I'd be surprised if it's finished, because what happens is when a witness comes, is cross-examined, he or she is cross-examined, mostly he now, is cross-examined by several people, by several counsel, and of course the commissioners themselves. So it takes a long time. So Brother U.C. Kwana right now is on the stand. He I know professionally and personally, because he is one of the leading members of the Working People's Alliance, and he has been given amazing testimony of the context of the time and his personal association with Walter Rodney and the constitutional, political, and social thing. Of course, one of the issues too that comes out is the text. A text written by the family of Gregory Smith, the person of interest in the assassination of Walter Rodney. That text written by his sister is very critical in the hearing so far. And what has happened is that some of the witnesses are disproving some of the statements made in that text, essentially about the Smith's relationship with Rodney, 1, 2, the fact that there's not a cloud of misinformation about whether he was a member of the WP. And so those things are coming out, and I anticipate that more of that will come out as the commission continues.
Yes. Is there, I've been following the testimony by U.C. Kwana and find it riveting myself. But the earlier on there was this discussion, and you mentioned it before, of the missing files. How significant is that, do you think, the files that are missing?
Well, it's very significant. A lot of the major players at the time are deceased or away too. Just yesterday, on Friday, there was a mention by the commission chairman, Sir Richard Cheltenham, that they have asked Major General Norman McLean to testify on Tuesday. And so that will be interesting, because Major General, then Brigadier Norman McLean, was in charge of the army at the time of Dr. Rodney's assassination. So that will be an interesting aspect to the context. Not only the environment around that time and who was in charge, but most of the other players are deceased. So there's a lot of time. But in terms of the files, there are two things about that. One, it is not surprising given the state of archives in Guyana, and I've been professionally dealing with the archives, and they've been very tardy responses to documents over time, and I would imagine that it occurs in the police force. But there's a second aspect of that which I think is more likely, is that, of course, some people with interest in not having documents about that assassination be present. So over time, and this is from 1980 you're talking about, files could have easily disappeared in that context. That's my own personal opinion. Yes. So out of the 10 alleged files, there are 3 the crime chief had in his possession, and that means a lot, I think, in the context.
Right.
There's a big gap.
It is, and I'm thinking, all right, the commission, you said this could go into next year. Lots of testimonies there, lots of time. In terms of, and I know that the terms of reference of the COI, but also the Walter Rodney, the Justice for Walter Rodney Committee wanted to see a few things, and are following this closely to ensure that dignity is maintained, the dignity for Walter Rodney and so on, and if this is a fair trial and so on. Against that background, how is the trial going from your own perspective?
Well, it's actually panning out a bit better than we thought in terms of the free exchange of ideas. One is serving as an education for the listening public in Guyana and elsewhere, because a lot of the information over time subsided, the role of Rodney, not only regionally but locally, the role of the WPA, the role of principal actors in the WPA at the time, the repressive atmosphere at that time, also the context. Some of the lawyers have been, apart from the lawyer for the PNC, who's naturally he would bring the present into context, but even the lawyers for the family and for Donald Rodney, before they preface their remarks, are always asking the question about extrajudicial killings then and now. So the later context, so they're not trying to, to take any particular side. So because Guyana's political context is very fraught, as you'd imagine, over time, a lot of changes have been made. A government has been elected, which was not elected before, and they're now been in power for 19 years. And so there are some parallels being drawn as well. They may not be accurate in all of its manifestations, but certainly there is some credible reason to discuss extrajudicial killings since the arrival of the current government in office. So there's a context in which it's laden with fraught with political division. But out of that, I think some of the more, I think that some people are, the history lesson is being learnt, and then especially with Brother Kwai, I understand what he managed to do is to calm the context of, let's say, comparison between periods. In other words, he's saying it's important to look at 1980 in its own right as a serious repressive atmosphere. And it's important to lay the foundation. We know very well that the People's Progressive Party is in government now, and he himself said it, was in no way responsible for the death of Rodney. But we understand that the context of comparison will be brought to bear because of the ethnic and political divide in Guyana at this current time. So there's some of that. But so far, I think that the Commission will handle themselves very well, and it seems to be going fairly well in terms of both educative and search for truth, as the Justice for Walter Rodney Committee wanted. There are some things which could be improved, of course, but essentially I think it will be interesting, though, when other state people and some secret witnesses testify, because that will be the very critical areas. Then the technical area when it comes up, because there are differences about the technology used in the car at the time. Remember, the issue was that Walter Rodney was supposed to be holding a walkie-talkie,
yes,
which was triggered to device, an anti-personal device, which killed him instantly, but didn't kill his brother and singe his face. So that issue of the technology, when it comes to beer, will be very, very interesting, because that is the area, I think, in which the foundation of Gregory Smith's book and his sister's book will certainly fall apart.
You said that things are going pretty, as well as can be expected, but you also said that there's some things that could be better, things that could change. What are some of these things that you're referring to?
Well, for example, as I said, you're in a context where right now in Guyana, you have two things going on. One is that the WPA, which is the principal political party at that time, because time changes, and I don't want to belabor your audience with the political history, but since 1980, from 1980 until 1985, there were some minor changes when Burnham died in 1985. There were minor tinkling with the Constitution, and there was some openings. For example, the democratic press came in under the Hoyt regime. By 1992, with the intervention of Jimmy Carter and the pressure among the opposition groups in Guyana, there was a free and fair election that was held for the first time since 1965 or thereabouts. 65 in Guyana. So you had the rigged elections in 68 and 1973 and 1980. So what happened was an opening was there. And then the People's Progressive Party government came into power in 1992, and they're still in power. And over that period of time, when Jagan died in 1997, his younger president took over, Barry Jagdeo. And from that time to this, there were a lot of allegations about drugs and extrajudicial killings and corruption. So you have a changed atmosphere to the point where the paradox is that the People's National Congress Party has changed a lot in terms of their own internal organization, and the WPA along with other parties, are in alliance with the People's National Congress and a group called APNU, Alliance Partnership for National Unity. Mm. So, and they're mainly opposed to the People's Progressive Party government in power. So you have this situation where you may have a PNC person who sits in Parliament with a WPA person who will be cross-examined and stand for information about the Rodney assassination, and they're both colleagues in Parliament at the same time. And so that essentially, I think, clarifies the dilemma or the political context in which Guyana is at the current time. Mm-hmm. And so when I said it was remarkable that the Commission has continued so far in that divisive atmosphere, mm-hmm. That's what I meant. Okay. But we will have more information too coming out about technical issues, about the Army's role, and we have, for example, people who, including the now deceased Laurie Lewis, who was deceased a couple of years ago. He was the chief of intelligence at the time of 1980, and he was actually retained by Dr. Jagan and the People's Progressive Party government after 92 in office. So he was a police commissioner. Secondly, Major General Norman McLean, who will testify on Tuesday, he was also retained in some functional capacity in the post-government. So you have a whole set of crosshairs of dilemma and political contradictions in the current atmosphere, which I say will be very difficult to parse through for your audience. But that is what I meant by the days ahead. We'll have a lot of contradictions and some perhaps difficult times in terms of testimony.
Yes, and you mentioned also secret witnesses and state witnesses. Secret witnesses?
Well, I've heard it. We haven't confirmed. I don't know. I've heard the counsel for the commission, Glenn Hanneman, he mentioned at one point in the proceedings that they have a secret witness whose name will not be released, but he or she will be given evidence in terms of their participation or infiltration, I heard, of the WP at the time. And so in that context, we'll hear about that. But we haven't heard anything else except as a secret witness. The surprise was that Major General Norman McLean is going to take the stand. That will be interesting because, as I said, he's the only link, so far as I know, official link between that time and now in terms of information that he could give to the commission in terms of his role and the role of the army at that time and the role of the state at that time.
All right, this really is interesting. You know, one of the things that our listeners should know is that you're able, right where you are here in Jamaica, or for those listening all over the world on the internet at irfm.net, to follow the proceedings as they happen, because this is being broadcast, streamed live. Professor Westmas, we're able to do that. Or if you just go to the Facebook page, Justice for Walter Rodney, where our brother Wazir Muhammad is doing such a good job in updating us and also sending the links to the live stream. So type in live stream for Walter Rodney, or just go to the Justice for Walter Rodney Facebook page, and so much information is there. I try and retweet and also to repost that. We noticed Professor Westmas coming out of out of Guyana, and also posted on the Facebook page that GTUC lawyer at Rodney Inquiry warns of possible prosecution, laments absence of state lawyers, saying that warning that immunity from prosecution in the Walter Rodney Commission of Inquiry does not prevent persons from being charged privately or through international proceedings. What can you tell us about this, and how would this, do you think, affect any of the hearings there?
Yeah, well, it's pretty new. We only heard it yesterday, so I don't know what will be the response of both the Commissioners of Inquiry and the State Council, as well as the opposition council. I say opposition, I mean the People's National Congress lawyer, to that statement made by Mr. Peters, who represents the Guyana Trades Union Congress. But I know, for example, in the case of the apartheid, anti-apartheid, the post-South Africa Reconciliation Committee, once the guarantees were made, I don't think they were violated at that time by the Commission of Inquiry into the apartheid era in South Africa, as far as I know. So nobody was brought before an international commission of let's say, the Hague trial or whatever. I don't know the legal aspects, so I'm a little hamstrung in terms of responding to all of what you just asked in terms of what is the law in Guyana insofar as a private charge could be made. But I anticipate that the commissions will clarify it on Monday when they speak, because it's fairly new, and the news it just broke. That the commission for the TUC has said that there's a danger that people who go and testify could be charged later on.
Right.
But as I said, I don't have legal, technical advice on that issue as it stands.
All right, we'll certainly follow that. I know that my brother Bert Samuels, who is coming on right after you, is also following the proceedings, and we'll ask him what he thinks. I don't think he's heard of this, but I'll just throw it out there in any case. So, Bert, while you're listening, if you could look into that and see if you can give us a quick answer when you come on. All right, so as we wrap up this segment, Professor Westmas, to what extent are people in Guyana And then, as far as you know, in the wider region, following this trial, it is a history lesson of sorts and a lot of lessons to be learned. What can you tell us about the engagement of the public with the Commission of Inquiry that's happening?
Well, it's appearing live in so far as Guyana is concerned. It's appearing live on the stream, as you indicated, and it's audio as well. And so people are also sitting in the audience, which I noticed from the live stream.
Yes, yes.
I'm not in Guyana currently, so I don't know what extent it's circulating or percolating in the streets of Guyana. Yes. I do know that, as you mentioned, the history lesson is being brought live, and a few letters have appeared in the press, Guyana Press, which speaks about Guyana, and on Facebook, which speaks about Guyana's luminary knowledge and grasp of detail and context on the stand as a witness. But I anticipate it will probably develop more because the press is carrying it fairly extensively in Guyana, the newspaper press that is, and possibly other TV stations.
Yes.
But I don't have a sense of the actual climate. Is it divisive? Is it educational? Is it excitement about the discussion? I don't know. I don't have the feed. I'm going in June, end of June, to Guyana, and I probably have a better grasp of how people are thinking on the ground because it's very difficult. But I do know there's a lot of interest because it does involve a senior luminary Guyanese, Rodney, and it does involve a wide spectrum of political parties and interests in Guyana at the current time. But as I said, it's coming in a context of divide over time, and so there will be contradictory impulses towards the commission or the evidence that comes out of the commission.
Yes.
Knowing Guyana.
Yeah. But my only disappointment in terms of Jamaica's engagement with the Commission of Inquiry is that, yes, there's some media who are focusing on this, and I think we've done a pretty good job here in Jamaica in terms of bringing it to public awareness. Would have liked to see the University of the West Indies being more engaged in this in terms of discussions, in terms of fora, that kind of a thing to keep this in the public eye. I think we do have a stake in ensuring that we are bearing witness on behalf of Walter Rodney. So that is my disappointment so far. But we have a long way to go. Let us see how we can correct those mistakes.
But also the Jamaica also, Rodney was an internationalist. So Africa, Kenya, South Africa, Zimbabwe, Ghana, and of course Jamaica. His role in Jamaica in 1968 and thereabouts. He's relatively a citizen of the Caribbean so far as his role is concerned in revolutionary activity and the politics of the poor. So yes, I firmly concur with you.
All right, Professor Nigel Westmass, the Commission of Inquiry into the assassination of our brother Dr. Walter Rodney continues. Once again, just remind our listeners how they can follow this, where they can get information.
Yes, you can get information on NCN streaming live from Guyana. You can click on either Google it or you can check on the Facebook page where Dr. Razir Muhammad is established. And secondly, if you don't get the visual too well, you can also click on DemararaWavesGuyana.com, which is a new news agency, and they have it audio. So you can get both audio and visual as you like. But you can also follow it in the Guyana Press. There are reports afterwards about the context of the proceedings.
All right. Professor Nigel Westmass, thank you very much. About Walter Rodney, and we're going to be joined on the phone lines now by Pan-African Attorney at Law, Bert Samuels, who, as a law student, sat in a lecture delivered by Dr. Walter Rodney in Barbados. And I want to talk to him about a little bit about that lecture, what was said, how it impacted him, his own perceptions of Dr. Walter Rodney at the time. Dr. Walter Rodney touched so many lives across the continent of Africa, the African diaspora, inclusive of Jamaica, and the region on a whole, the Barbados and so on. Here we had a Jamaican law student in Barbados. Here was Dr. Walter Rodney. All right, so we are standing by to speak with Pan-African attorney Bert Samuels. Mr. Bert Samuels, Pan-African attorney, welcome.
Good morning to you, Andrea.
Right, and I'm going to correct you because you were the lawyer on my deed poll. My name is Kabu.
Kabu, I'm sorry, habits die hard.
Don't they? They do. All right. But here you were in Barbados. Here is Dr. Walter Rodney. Can you take us back to the moment before the election? How you heard about the election? How, if you can remember? I mean, I know it was just the other day, but take us back to that whole time when you heard Dr. Walter Rodney was coming to give that lecture.
Well, I have to take it beyond that. Remember now, in 1968, when the then government led by Shearer declared him persona non grata, I was just 14 years old, and there were persons around me who were at the university, and I was conscious of the fact that, this was a man who was spreading consciousness in Jamaica, and he was thrown out because he was speaking about black consciousness. Mm-hmm. So, having been thrown out of Jamaica in 1968, I thought, here it is, I'd never be able to behold this man again, and so come what would that be, some 7 years after, I'm in Barbados studying law, and I hear that there's going to be a lecture by Walter Rodney in Barbados, and I was so elated. I was going to see him firsthand. I heard of him as a young teenager. I'm now an adult, and I absorbed and read his work, Groundings with my brother, and I said, yes, this is the man I wanted to hear. And though I was studying law, he's a political scientist, he's a historian, he's an activist. That was outside of my studies,
Yes.
So I was one of the first one in the lecture theatre.
Okay, so this lecture wasn't to law students. This was a broader lecture, not just...
It wasn't just to law students. It was a broader lecture. Okay.
Yes.
It was being held. But, it was because the Faculty of Law is in Barbados, that's the strongest faculty. The population in the law faculty is, outstrips all others. So we sat there, and as I said, I was at the front very early, being used to the honor and privilege of hearing Brother Walter lecture, and he walked in. He was a slender-built man. He was, natural hair in the Afro style, and he stood up as this great black intellectual, and he started out because he knew the majority of us were law students, and he began to deal with the question of what the black intellectuals have done and our contribution to the movement. And he was very, 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 very hard on attorneys who had studied and continued to embrace things like my lord. I remember he said, because, in court we refer to the judges as my lord. And then he gave the feudal connection between my lord, and the servants and the serfs, and that particular reference to judges was to uphold something that was a very negative part of the past. He was very, very chastising of us, and I accepted the chastism, and I was just, 2 years into the study of law, and it kind of paved my way to think consciously about how we inherited a British system of law, superimposed it, and enforced it against an African population in the Caribbean. And as though, lawyers tend to kind of think that we are privileged to inherit, the English laws, which is such a misfit in so many ways. And that's what he lectured about. That our laws were not indigenous. And we kind of threw them out, and as intellectuals, we are now in a position to look back at those laws. And part of my personal challenge, led by Walter, has been what indigenous laws we brought here from Africa. I know we had a great family structure, which we should try to embrace. And it was a very, very deep rooted and it calls for self-examination lecture that Walter gave that evening.
Yes, and it's interesting because and I've been doing lots of reading on Walter Rodney. That he was influenced greatly, and he himself impacted by the fundamental principles of life in Tanzania in terms of some of the principles that Ubuntu and Judy and so on. And I'm looking at those principles, and I think Andy probably needs some more time to sit down, understand some of those principles, and to bring them to the fore, because it sounded to me as if even in that lecture he was bringing some of that to the fore in terms of our indigenous laws.
By then he had been to Tanzania and had been a lecturer there. He did go to the continent and came back to the Caribbean. The disgrace and shame is that Shearer, virtually killed his presence in Jamaica, and then in his own country he was taken out. So that, how could a man be spreading a philosophy which is so empowering for black people, and the blacks amongst us, and took him out.
And I see you, Bert. At 14, you recall that he was kicked out, and your own emotions at the time, which means that there were within you the stirrings, if not much more than that, of Pan-Africanism even at 14. So that going to listen to Walter Rodney and that lecture that he gave, was that in a way a confirmation for you in terms of your own purpose? Because ever since I've known you, and it's been a while now, these are some of the issues that you have been focused on, seriously focused on.
Yeah, Walter was spearheaded the whole thing. You know, what I admired about him, when he came to Jamaica, he didn't, go around the intellectual community only and the upper middle class. Mm-hmm. He found himself in the gullies and the ghettos of Kingston and spoke to the Rastafarians, spoke to black consciousness. And he taught me, his example to me is, listen, intellectuals are not here for the status quo. He really reinforced that in me. Yeah. And as he said, from the age of 40, I remember at high school, I was so pro-African that my half-Chinese teacher gave me an African name. He had called me Balahula. Mm. And that became kind of a joke for the class, but that was a kind of an honor to me to be called that. The things that people ridiculed in the past have become embraced, now. And one of the things I disliked, Andrea, when I was growing up, the girl beside me was Chinese. So they would say, the Chinese girl beside you that is sitting beside me. So I said, she was born here, I'm African. Yes. And I rejected the whole idea of to be labeled with a nationality rather than, of Jamaican rather than my African roots. Mm-hmm. The Indian boy is sitting over there, the Chinese girl is sitting over here, and they're calling me the Jamaican boy. Yes. That is just to, take away my heritage.
And that is also a struggle that we're still fighting, even at the level of a classroom to this day. When we take up the history book, when we take up the social studies books and the books that are teaching our little children at 3 and 4 and 5, and then beyond, that you have you have the Chinese, you have the Indian, you have the African, and you have and you have the Jamaican. No, this is where we're schizophrenic. We are confused and don't want to know otherwise. So I still think that part of honoring Dr. Walter Rodney and part of bearing witness on behalf of Walter Rodney too is what you're doing, is what we're doing in this space, is to bring issues like this to the fore and to say that the struggle continues.
Can you imagine how Walter felt though, that he came to a country, Jamaica, which was the land of Marcus Garvey. He is an admirer of Garvey and was to be thrown out by the government of Jamaica for teaching black pride and black dignity. Mm-hmm. That commission of inquiry in Guyana, we should put certain people on trial in that commission of inquiry too for what they did to Rodney in Jamaica.
And I wonder if they'll be called. I wonder if they'll be called. We probably need to write to the commission. It might be too late now to say, some people you should call. But I said to Nigel, and I know you don't know this, but I'm just saying it since I said I would have asked you that. Now we're hearing that the persons who are, appearing at the hearings in the Commission of Inquiry, that they've been warned now that regardless of what the commissioners say in terms of you will not be liable to be prosecuted later down the line, that there might be civil proceedings against them, and it's not as clear-cut as it sounds. Can you make any comment on that generally?
I put my legal hat on. Yes. The whole idea of, South Africa, they put that in the reconciliation hearings, that whatever you said, to encourage people to speak the truth. Yes. So there are times when the Commission of Inquiry wants the truth to come out, and they do not want people to be inhibited, that there may be criminal sanctions or civil sanctions. However, the civil sanctions would kind of be under the laws, they must be taken within 6 years for that kind of thing. So... Mm-hmm. Speaking as an attorney, I think that it is important that people speak the truth, and because history deserves to know, our children and our children to come deserve to know the truth. So that to me is something that would have had to be on the table.
Mm-hmm. And my contention is, I'm just wondering how this will affect the willingness of people to come forward and the willingness of people to speak the truth, which is what we want, justice for Walter Rodney, if you fear, civil sanctions further down the road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess persons would be, it would be difficult for persons to speak the truth if they felt that there'd be there'd be some consequences in terms of court proceedings. So I hope the truth is spoken there, but our truth in Jamaica is what led that government to find Walter Rodney to be an enemy. Yes. We know that, the Central Intelligence Agency was very active during those periods of time and controlled a lot of our governments. And I'd be very interested to see what role, if any, that organization, United States, played in silencing Rodney.
Yes. We hear that this might go on for a year, going into next year. So we're watching and waiting patiently, bearing witness to what's happening there. And we do hope that we'll have more discussions even on the ground here in Jamaica about the Commission of Inquiry, about what's ongoing, whether it's on the university campus or it's outside of the university campus. But I think these are conversations that we need to have within our own context too, because we were so complicit in what happened to Walter Rodney eventually, but also that we have so many things hanging in the air that we need to deal with, like Tivoli, we have a whole lot. Let me not.
A whole lot. And I think that Groundings with My Brother, which is a kind of an hour and a half read, it should be required reading for all the young people listening to you, Andrea, to because they weren't around when Rodney was alive, and they should be updated on the work of Walter Rodney, that great black, intellectual historian, who and the book called How Europe Underdeveloped Africa is a treasured work of Rodney.
Of course, yes. So we look, let's throw those out. Get your copies of those. I don't think that they are that available here in Jamaica, but maybe now we'll see more of them in the bookshops.
The title sends a message: How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. That in itself tells you the perspective of Rodney.
Yes. I'm going to talk about it a little bit. Thank you very much, my brother, Pan-African attorney.
And I know you didn't read Enslaved by Claude McKay. Did you read Enslaved by Claude McKay this morning?
No, I was just asking, it's just by the way that these poems kept popping into my head.
Oh, you should. But while you read that one morning, Enslaved by Claude McKay.
But didn't you write a column in the paper where you quoted that?
Yes, indeed.
Do you have it there? Can you read it?
No, Andrew, you didn't invite me. And I sent you about 10 emails asking you to read it. I mean, I don't have it.
No, you didn't ask me to read it. You sent me the article, which I read the article. Then how would I know that was in the article?
Morning. Find it. 1 second.
No. All right. You find it there, Bert. Let me take a quick break. Find it. All right.
Yes, I have it.
All right, you have it right there?
Yep.
Okay, go ahead.
Ready?
Yes.
Oh, when I think of my long-suffering race, for weary centuries despised, oppressed, enslaved and lynched, denied a human place in the great lifeline of the Christian West, and in the black land disinherited, robbed in the ancient country of its birth, my heart grows sick with hate, becomes as lead. For this my race that has no home on earth. Then from the dark depths of my soul I cry to the avenging angel to consume the white man's world of wonders utterly, that it be swallowed up in the earth's vast womb, or upward roll as sacrificial smoke to liberate my people from its yoke. That's Claude McKay.
That's Claude McKay. Thank you so much, my brother. You know what? Would you believe that Claude McKay was supposed to be in the ancestral spirit-wise, he's here. Because, my husband read that very same poem to me last night. Right?
Okay.
That very same poem he read to me last night. So here we are, and it's now in the space here. It should be in the space. Thank you very much.
You couldn't end without that one.
No, not at all. Thank you very much, my brother. Bert Samuels there, a Pan-African attorney at law, impacted as a young person by the proceedings around the events surrounding the Dr. Walter Rodney being declared persona non grata here in Jamaica, being sent out of Jamaica unceremoniously by the Shire government, and then appearing in Barbados 7 or 8 years later, delivering a lecture at which he sat in the front row and listened. So many of us impacted in so many ways along the way by the greats among us. A quick break and we'll be right back with much more inside of the Africa Forum. The Guyanese Pan-African scholar activist Walter Rodney, June 30, 1980, assassinated by a remote-controlled bomb. The government of Forbes Burnham claimed that a bombing device he was carrying, allegedly to attack the central prison where some of the activists of his party, the Working People's Alliance of Guyana, were being held, killed Rodney. That was a claim. This official lie could have turned his assassination into a perfect murder, but for the fact that his brother, Donald, was with him in the fateful car and he survived the explosion. That changed the entire narrative again around this assassination of our brother, Dr. Walter Rodney. As you heard Nigel Westmast mention, a state security operative, Smith, was fingered as the perpetrator of the dastardly act. He was quickly spirited out of the country to French Guiana, where he died a few years ago. The murder trial did not begin or end with Smith. Many felt that that Forbes Burnham, his regime and his party, the PNC, bears responsibility for the assassination and the cover-up since then. It is sad that 34 years after the assassination and so many years since the PNC was replaced by the governing PPP, and now no closure has been brought to the Rodney's assassination, but the Commission of Inquiry is finally underway. For many Africans, Walter Rodney's legacy remains his influential and seminal book, as you heard Bert Samuels mentioned, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, a book that was published when Walter Rodney was only 29 years old, having secured his PhD at the age of 24. Are you listening? And these are the images and these are the role models that we want to project onto the minds of our young ones. We want to say to them that study is natural, study is a part of living, study is a part of life, and you never stop studying, and it's a cycle. You do that as you go, and you never stop. So that at 24, achieving your PhD at 24 is normal. It is what we expect from you, and we expect that the state will provide the support for that. That a master's degree shouldn't cost $6,500 US dollars. A master's degree at the University of the West Indies in development studies costs almost $700,000 for 1 year Jamaican dollars. That is madness. But in any case, we want to hold people like Walter Rodney up as role models to say you can achieve at a young age, and study is normal, study is living, studying is life. In other words, if you're not studying, and it doesn't have to be that you get a formal PhD now, but study is what study is. So you're always reading. So you get a book now, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, and whether you've got a PhD, an MA or BA or no A's, read that. Read that. Do your research, do your reading, study. Our brother Dr. Abdullah says, by whatever standard, whether professionally or politically, Walter Rodney was an exceptional person whose influence will continue among all struggling peoples desiring a different world and working to make it possible. He packed so much into his 38 years as if he knew would come calling, death would come calling so soon. 38 years. In the book that Bert Samuels mentioned, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, Walter Rodney laid bare the historical process through which Africa became the mess that we see all around us. He established that there was nothing natural or God-ordained about the processes. They were man-made and therefore changeable by act of human will and determination. And I think this is the way we are to look at our condition today, that there is nothing natural or God-ordained about the conditions of poverty and hopelessness in which we continue to find ourselves as African people. And there's nothing natural when you hear, whether it's on a Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday, blessed are the poor, there's something wrong with that. So that this is not an act of God. Poverty is not an act of God. Political tribalism is not an act of God. And there's nothing natural about that. Corruption, you know, the boots of the oppressor in your throats. Nothing natural about that. All man-made. And as Walter Rodney speaks to in How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, because they were man-made, they are therefore changeable by act of human will and by act of determination. This is what we have to know. He showed in the book how Africa developed before contact with Europeans through slavery, 400 years, and colonialism, 100 years. What happened under slavery and colonialism, and how both led to Africa contributing to the development of Europe, while Europe was underdeveloping Africa in the same process. And we see that happening today. I spoke earlier about that beltway from the east across the middle, the gut and the stomach and the belly of Africa, all the way back to the west and northwest of Africa. How Africa continues to be underdeveloped. The underdeveloping process of Africa continues by the United States, Europe, and in some cases, political activist who put his knowledge at the service of the masses wherever he was. He was a scholar who proved through his life that the true test of knowledge was a proven capacity for action. And we're going to be paying tribute to Dr. Maya Angelou in a little while, who thought in a similar way that your art must not be separate from your activism. In other words, you identify yourself as a poet, but poetry is what you do as a result of your activism. You identify yourself as a doctor, but medicine is what you do as a result of your activism, to see change, to enact change and be part of change, health-wise or otherwise, in your community, the African community. You identify yourself as a broadcaster, as a journalist, but journalism is what you do as part of the activism to see change in your community. So we must not separate our art, our craft, our profession from our activism. And even if we have to change the Western definition of lawyer, of doctor, of teacher, of journalist, of poet, we have to go back to our own definitions of who we understand, ancient Kemet, of who we understand ourselves to have been. Complex characters, multifaceted. Not a title. And all of this for change within our community. Walter Rodney was not just a brilliant academic, but also a committed political activist. And he did not separate academia from political activism. He understood them to be one and the same. He put his knowledge at the service of the masses wherever he was. He was a scholar who proved through his life that the true test of knowledge was a proven capacity for action. Whether in Jamaica, where he began his academic career, or Tanzania, where he became internationally prominent, or in Guyana, where he returned initially to teach, but the government withdrew the appointment when he arrived, Rodney was part of all the struggles around him. In Dar es Salaam, where he was in the center of progressive ideas, honest attempt at social transformation and African liberation struggles, Walter Rodney was part of the foment, supporting the struggles and at times offering critical inputs, and made friends and comrades of many leading radical intellectuals and liberation fighters of the time, and influencing generations of students. When Walter Rodney returned to Ghana and he was denied his professional post at the university, he turned to independent research, publishing the first volume of his definitive history of the Ghanese working class. He showed how, whether Indian or African, the Ghanese workers were exploited first by colonialists and later successive ruling elites, be they African or Indian. Of Walter Rodney, as the Commission of Inquiry continues in Guyana. Walter Rodney. Dr. Maya Angelou was deeply involved in the 1960s civil rights struggle, working with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. Encouraged by the author James Baldwin, among others, to focus on her writing, Maya Angelou penned I Know Why the Caged Birds Sings, her first of 7 biographies. The book launched the phenomenal career for which she's known around the world as an award-winning author and people's poet. Paying tribute to her in the program this morning. As I said before, she died last Wednesday at her home in North Carolina. First to Cairo, and that's where Maya Angelou became the editor of a Cairo Pan-African newspaper. She later lived in Ghana, where she met Malcolm X, and the two, Malcolm X and Maya Angelou, collaborated on developing the Organization of Afro-American Unity. Maya Angelou returned to the United States to support the effort, but Malcolm X was assassinated shortly after her return. The 1968 assassination of her friend, the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., devastated Maya Angelou. It was in 1969 she was encouraged by the author James Baldwin, among others, to focus on her writing. And out of that came I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, her first of 7 autobiographies, and the phenomenal career for which she's known around the world. Maya Angelou was an award-winning people's poet, an activist. Imhotep, the first figure of a physician to stand out clearly from the mists of antiquity. The world's first known multi-genius, of course, the Grand Vizier to King Zosa of a 3rd Egyptian dynasty. Architect Keriheb, that is chief lector priest, sage and scribe, astronomer, magician, physician. See why we say he's the world's first multi-genius, long before they started telling us about Da Vinci. There was Imhotep, would have celebrated his birthday yesterday, May 31. 4,997 years since his birth. What about that? The first figure of a physician to stand out clearly from the mists of antiquity. Builder of the step pyramids. Of course, the step pyramids still stand today. The step pyramid of Saqqara, standing today in the deserts. Composed a poem myself at Saqqara of the step pyramids, published in my book. You can grab a copy and read. So we are recalling and remembering Imhotep this morning. They would turn our heroes and our ancestors, they would turn our sheroes, they would turn those who went and have gone ahead of us into demons and devils and their own caricature of what the worst of them represent. And so we've got some movies that our children are watching, and I can't remember the names of the movies now, but there's a series of them which feature our beloved Imhotep. Well, at least the name Imhotep. It's not our beloved Imhotep in that movie. The name Imhotep. So that when we say to our children, you are Imhotep, you are a medical doctor, you're a scientist, you're an architect, you're a builder of great pyramids, you are Imhotep, you've got that within you. They are literally crying because they do not want to be that which we have them watching on TV, which is Imhotep, the name of our ancestor used to portray a wicked, demonic, devil, satanic thing. We have to tell our children their stories, the stories of Africa, the stories of ourselves, the stories of who we are, before they get to them through Hollywood and school and the classroom and the media. We must tell them our story before they can speak. We must tell them our story from the womb. We must tell them our story from conception. We must tell our children our story.
Comrades and friends, it is my great pleasure to welcome you to Accra and to this conference of African freedom fighters and supporters of the growing movement for Africa's liberation and unity. It is good for our cause to have a periodic meeting of this kind to examine our position in the great struggle to rid Africa completely and forever of imperialism and its handmaidens, colonialism and neo-colonialism. It gives us the opportunity also to review our strength as well as that of the enemy and to reorganize our forces and our strategy in order to carry the struggle forward to victory. We have shaped a destiny for ourselves, and no one can alter the course of that destiny. It is the destiny of complete freedom for Africa, the total liberation of our continent, and its political and economic unification. We have achieved some measure of success in this struggle for human freedom and dignity. But we still have a great task ahead. We can only know the extent of our task and our own strength when we have examined and ascertained that of the enemy.
When we lose our African connection, we lose our world connection. When we disconnect ourselves from Africa, we cease to be a world.
And I use the word most carefully, formidable. They are intense and powerful. They are, as I've taken some pains to explain, the forces of imperialism acting through their instruments, neo-colonialism and colonialism, ably assisted by the agents of the Cold War. They operate in worldwide combinations at all levels: political, economic, military, cultural, educational, social, and trade. And not all. And through intelligence, cultural, and information services. They operate from European and African centers, using agents who, I'm ashamed to say, are often unpatriotic sons of Africa, buying personal satisfactions with the betrayal of their country's safety and integrity. They seduce leaders. They seduce leaders of the African political, trade union, and people's organization, thus creating rifts and quarrels within the national front. On the border front, they are amassing their forces in a determined effort to stay the advance of African liberation and the march of unity. It is not accidental that the countries of the European Common Market and those spearheading the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, the imperialist powers who have brought in their vassals, Spain and Portugal. Portugal, in fact, since the wars of the Spanish succession, 1700 to 1714, being a protectorate of Britain, which has enjoyed special trading and unnecessary rights in both Portugal and in the Portuguese territories for over 200 years.
Africa's teams, continental Africa's teams, plus Costa Rica.
Yes.
We got to do what we got to do. All right. So the feature, of course, is looking at
the 5 African teams that are in the
football
showpiece.
All right. So
football.
And we're also unveiling the theme for Kanaka Brasilia. So this is a theme song for Kanaka Brasilia. When you hear this, then you know that it's time for Kanaka Brasilia. with Roger Hasford. By the way, Kanako it's time. It's time for another big one, football's ultimate premier game. And this time it's in Brazil. So here we go, the theme.
The qualifying tournament to determine the continent's 5 slots for the showpiece qualification began with a first round of 12-legged knockout ties. They were held between November 11 and 16, 2011. Now the ties involved the 24 lowest ranked teams according to the world rankings. The 12 winners joined the remaining 28 entrants in the second round, which consisted of 10 groups of 4. The winners held from June 12 to September 2013 advanced to the third round of 5 two-leg knockout ties. Now those 10 teams that contested the final qualifiers were the Ivory Coast, Senegal, Ethiopia, Nigeria, Tunisia, Cameroon, Ghana, Egypt, Burkina Faso and Algeria. And the 5 winners of those ties that advanced to the world finals were the Ivory Coast, Nigeria, Cameroon, Ghana and Algeria. We now look at the teams who are in this year's World Finals, and we start off with Cameroon, also known as the Indomitable Lions. Now, this was the first team that showed the world that Africa can roll the ball. Now, perhaps no team has done more to shake up the perceptions of African football. The Lions exited Spain in '82 at the group stage, but they ended their maiden excursion undefeated, having drawn 0-0 with Peru and Poland and 1-1 with the eventual champions Italy. 8 years later, they wrote themselves in the annals of the game by defeating Argentina in the opening match and becoming the first African side to reach the quarterfinals. They were powered by goals by the evergreen striker Roger Miller. The breakthrough performance remains their finest showing, group stage exits having followed in 1994, 98, 2002 and 2010. Now, how they qualified to Brazil? Well, they were drawn in perhaps the most open group in Africa, alongside Libya, Congo and Togo. Cameroon survived the challenge with the help of the overturned loss because of Togo's fielding an ineligible player. Ultimately, the Lions did enough anyway with a 1-0 defeat of the pace-setting Libyans in their final match that saw them finish with 13 points from 6 matches. Once in the final playoff, they were handed a tough task against Tunisia with aplomb. A scoreless draw on the road gave them to a 4-1 home win that had the Indomitable Lions feeling confident heading to Brazil. Now, how they match up in Rio 2014? Well, feeling confident heading to Brazil. Now, how they match up in Rio 2014? Well, the draw has been a little tough on Cameroon, putting them in the first group with the host of Brazil, Mexico, and Croatia. Here are their head-to-heads. Cameroon against Brazil. The teams have met 4 times. 1 win for Cameroon, 3 wins for Brazil. Cameroon against Mexico. They only met once, Mexico scoring the win. Croatia against Cameroon. The 2 teams never met before. The key players. Samuel Eto'o remains a world-class threat up front. He still serves as captain. But even without the Chelsea veteran, the side is loaded with experience and high-level talent. Nicolas Nkulu, Binoy Asu Ekoto, and Aurelien Shedu remain vital at the back, while midfield is even more loaded with Alex Song from Real Madrid, John Macoun and Stefan Mbia at the heart of the team. Their coach, German-born Volker Finke. Best performance, 1990 quarterfinals, and of course they have won the Olympic tournament in Sydney 2000. And their former stars, Roger Miller, Marc-Vivien Foy, and Rigobert Song. We move on to the Ivory Coast, the Elephants. Côte d'Ivoire, the French name. They have never made it past the group stage of FIFA World Finals, but it's perhaps worth pointing out that the draw has never been particular kind to them. For their debut performance in 2006, the Elephants shared Group C with Argentina, Netherlands, and Serbia-Montenegro. They finished 3rd in the pool, just as they did in South Africa 4 years later when they were drawn against Brazil, Portugal, and Korean Republic. Now, how they qualified for this showpiece? Well, Côte d'Ivoire breezed through their opening qualifying group with 4 wins from their 6 matches. They scored 15 goals and their only drop points came from 2 drawn results against the biggest rivals, Morocco. Their home and away playoff was much trickier as a resurgent Senegal stood in their way. The Senegalese were 1 goal away from knocking out the Elephants on away goals at 3-2 aggregate. But Solomon Kalou's late goal settled the tie and sent the Ivorians into the 3rd consecutive World Finals. Now the draw has been easy on Côte d'Ivoire, and they are set with a fair group with equal chances to qualify. They are joined by Colombia, Japan and Greece. Head-to-head, Côte d'Ivoire versus Colombia. They have never met before. Côte d'Ivoire versus Greece, never met before. Côte d'Ivoire versus Japan, they've played 3 times, 2 wins for Japan and 1 for the Elephants. Key players. Forwards Didier Drogba, Solomon Kalou are formidable up front. Midfield, Didier Zokora and Yaya Toure, key players in centre. Explosive winger Gervino supplies service from both flanks. Emmanuel Ebo and Kolo Toure providing a wealth of experience at the back. Best performances at FIFA 2006, 2010, and they have been to the World Under 17 Finals 1987, 3rd place, and Saudi Arabia 1992. Nigeria, the Super Eagles. After impressing on their way to the 2nd round in each of the first 2 World Cup appearances, 94 and 98, Nigeria have struggled since, going out at the group stage with 3, while taking just 2 points from their last 8 matches in the finals. A model South Africa 2010 campaign under Lars Lagerbäck did little to strengthen Nigeria's reputation, but Rio 2014 offers another chance for the reigning Africa champions to soar. How they qualified? Drawing in Group F with Malawi, Kenya and Namibia, Nigerians were always favorites to reach the final playoff round, the qualifying round. They did draw 3 times again, once against each opponent, with the most worrying result, 1-1 draw at home to Kenya. Once in the 2-leg playoff, the Super Eagles drew with the lowest ranked team, Ethiopia. And despite the improvement of the East Africans, Nigeria were really threatened. They won away 2-1 and at home 2-0. The draw for the Nigerians, they are in a fair group. Argentina, Bosnia-Herzegovina and Iran. The Super Eagles have their full chances of stepping into the next round. Head-to-head, Nigeria against Argentina. The 2 teams have met 6 times, 4 wins. 1 for Argentina, 1 for Nigeria, and 1 draw. Nigeria against Bosnia, the teams have never met. And Nigeria against Iran, the teams met only once, and it was the Super Eagles who ended victorious. Among the key players are Steve Keshi, and has earned a reputation as a good coach. And Chelsea's John Obi Mikel leaving his mixed pass with Eagles behind to become the linchpin of the side. Vincent Enyima is an important veteran, while Victor Moses, Ahmad Musa and Emmanuel Emike are key parts of the attack. And of course their former stars are JJ Okocha, Unwanko Kanu and Rashidi Yakini. Ghana. In the World Cup organized in Brazil, the draw was not merciful for the Black Stars, setting them in a group with Germany, Portugal and the United States. Head-to-head, Germany against Ghana. The teams have met twice with 2 victories for Germany. Ghana against Portugal. The teams have never met before. Ghana against USA. The 2 teams met twice with 2 victories for the Black Stars. And they can call on veterans Michael Essien and Sole Montari, as well as players hitting their prime like Andre Ayew, Kawada Asamoah, and Kevin Prince Boateng up front. Asamoah Gyan will be a key player and no doubt will be anxious to prove that Ghana can be the undisputed team. Their former stars are Abedi Pele, Samuel Kafour, and Ibrahim Sunday. And the final team in Africa for the ultimate showpiece, Algeria. They have played a total of 3 World Finals. They got off to the best possible start at the 82 edition in Spain, beating Germany 2-1 in their opening game. Despite a 3-2 victory over Chile, however, in their final group game and an earlier 2-0 loss to Austria, meant they were eliminated on goal difference. Algeria is the only team in the history of football that have won 2 games but still can't qualify for the next round. Now, that edition of the World Cup also witnessed a shameful act against Algeria by Austria and West Germany. They refused to play fair football in the game, matching them together to draw and grant both the qualifying ticket. And the rules were then changed because of that incident, making all third pool games starting at the same time to avoid such embarrassing acts. How they qualify, the Greens missed very few hits on their way to the ultimate showpiece. They won 5 out of 6 group matches to easily top a tricky group with Mali, Benin and Rwanda. Once they were in the final playoff, they drew one of the continent's informed teams, Burkina Faso, who surprised Africa by finishing second at the 2013 Cup of Nations. In that tie, they lost the first leg 3-2 due to a late penalty, but just claimed the place in Brazil with a 1-0 home win. They advanced on the away goal rule. And the draw has put Algeria in a quite balanced pool. All teams have similar chances to qualify, with Belgium, and they also have Russia, and they will be up there with a chance to qualify. And of course they will be meeting Korea. Head-to-head, Algeria against Korea. The 2 teams met only once in a friendly. Korea won 2-0. Algeria against Belgium, the teams met twice. They drew once and Belgium won 1. Algeria against Russia, the 2 teams met only once in a friendly, which they drew. So that's it for Kinako Brasilia this morning. Join us next week. We'll head right into the meat of things.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Roger Haspel. Interesting days ahead at football's ultimate showpiece
yes.
In Brazil. 5 African teams. And from what I heard you saying there, Nigeria should stand a fair chance.
Yes.
Ghana is in a category that looks like
tough,
a sudden death. But fingers crossed. If Ghana is to go through, who is a likely team that they would destroy to get there, to go through the next round?
It would have to be either Portugal or Germany.
Why not? So isn't US in that category?
Well, the Ghanaians, they have the USA ticket.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't think there is any major threat there.
Okay.
For the Ghanaians against USA, but the top 2 teams,
Portugal and Germany.
Okay. Yes, it's going to be very tough.
And Cote d'Ivoire looks strong in terms of the players
on paper and also in the group.
In the group,
yes.
And who's in that group again? Remind us. Cote d'Ivoire. Didier Drogba is up there again.
Yes, Didier Drogba. They have a host of household names: Solomon Kalou, Yaya Toure, the top midfielder in England, Gervinho, Emmanuel Eboe, Kolo Toure, and of course they are drawn in group with Colombia, Greece, and Japan.
All right, so Cote d'Ivoire.
On paper, Cote d'Ivoire looks good and should go through.
Cote d'Ivoire should decimate that and go through.
Yes.
But we understand that they're not necessarily playing as a team.
Yes, well, that's
everybody is playing for their own, for his or
that's another story for another day.
All right, okay, sorry.
Yeah, you're right.
But it is what we hear.
Yes.
So it looks exciting.
Yes.
So 5 + 1 looks like is how we're going. 5 from the continent, 1 from the region, Costa Rica.
And Honduras too.
And
Honduras. Call Honduras.
Oh, Honduras too?
Yes, Honduras.
What the makeup of the team look like?
You mean in terms of?
Yes, man. Same thing, yes.
Down the middle.
Good thing it's not TV.
Down the middle. Down the middle with a slight advantage on the darker side. Yeah.
All right, so 5 + 2.
Yes.
All right. So we look forward to Kinako Brasilia next week, which will be at a new time. Just keep listening. We'll tell you when, and you'll hear the promos too. Well, a lot we learned about the team this morning. Can we just say thank you very much for that? You know, how they qualified, how they got there, the groups that they're in, and so on, and who are the main players. It looks all good, sound exciting. We can't wait, and we're following these closely.
Definitely.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Roger Hasford.
You're welcome.
Kanaka. Hotep, my brother, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm calling to say blessings, Cabo, on the program this morning.
Give thanks.
Continue the work that you're doing.
Medase.
And just asking Roger about the football.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Will it take place? Could you give me the time that the program will be on? Since it was just aired right now.
All right. Thanks for calling. All right. Hang up and listen. Roger, I don't give the man the time. All right, keep listening. It's a teaser.
That's a programming decision.
Yes, it's a programming decision. Roger is working on it. Yes. All right, well, you know shortly. Keep listening. We'll be running the promos shortly also as we continue to take your telephone calls. So who would have known? Who would have thought it? That would be your first question, Roger. 974-5079. As we go to the phone lines, Hotep.
Yeah, man. Good morning to you both.
Yeah, Hotep.
Yeah, man. Mr. Adwell.
Morning, sir.
Adwell.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, man. I saw Shelly and Fraser Price. It seems like you're having some problem with her feet. I tell him. Yesterday she run last.
You didn't come to talk about Shelly, did you? But can you?
Yeah, she finished 8th yesterday out of 8 athletes. In recent weeks, if you have been following things, she has not been that well, and they have pulled her out of a couple of meets to try and get her up to standard, and apparently something is still wrong.
Listen to what's the score tomorrow night. All right? Thanks for calling. Yeah,
okay, not cool.
All right, 974-5079, 5051, 5043, and 1-888-991-4152 are the numbers to call. My sister Barbara Makeda Blake Hannah on Facebook. Know you're looking forward to the discussion on the public beaches, and we just had a cancellation from Minister Shahini Robinson. Member of Parliament Shahini Robinson. We'll tell you about that in a little while. Hotep?
Hello.
Yes, greetings. Go ahead.
Good morning, ma'am.
Yes, greetings, my brother.
In the name of His Imperial Majesty Selassie, and thank you for the work that you are doing to make Jamaicans see themselves as African in the diaspora, for we are not seeing ourselves eat too much meat and drink too much alcohol.
Yeah.
And thank you for Mary Makiba to that lady there from England, the lawyer. Right? And keep the faith. I'm Ryan from Friel District in St. Ann, Bamboo, and big up all our people in a Friel where they listen and Neptune, right? And keep up the good work, Sister Andrea.
Yes, man. Give thanks, Ryan Hotep, my brother.
Yeah, from Friel in St. Ann.
All right.
Big up all our people in a Friel and my family, them.
Okay, give thanks.
Bless.
Okay, to the folks in Freehill and Ryan and his family, good morning. Hotep. Taking your telephone calls at 974-5079, 5051. Hotep?
Blessed daughter.
Yes, Hotep.
Yes, my daughter, you were there saying
yes. Yes, we hear you loud and clear.
But me want to say, me wanna ask how you know African.
Yes.
Well, you know African, you know, Marcus Garvey did say it, you know, are you here? You take on African, you know.
You're here?
Yes.
Okay.
African here, take up one another.
Okay, so that's one way.
One way, no other nation.
So how you know the Ethiopian?
Well,
many different kinds of hair types in Ethiopia, you know.
Well, them there migration, you know.
Really?
Yeah, migrate people them there. Mm-hmm. Even Solomon himself coming through there, so.
Oh, I see. All right, thanks for sharing.
Yeah, okay.
All right. All right, taking your telephone calls. You're inside of the Africa Forum, Running African. This segment of the program with the theme song to Kanaka Brasilia in the background. We're taking your telephone calls. Well, we're scheduled to speak with Shahina Robinson about responding to government's announcement of improvement to public beaches. She is not able to do that interview, but we're going to talk about it a little. In the meantime, though, we take your telephone calls. Hotep? Hotep? Hotep, hello?
Hello?
Yes, Hotep, my brother, go ahead.
Yes, Andrea, blessed love, my sister. You know, just over the years, I go and listen and take in the program.
Yes.
So I say, and you know, say you're a program, and I just want the program where you just correspond with the diaspora all over the world and keep the African legacy.
Yes.
And make them know, say, all over the world, no matter where they are, one blackness, so we just come together and unite in peace and love. You understand? Because I said, we don't unite, the Gideon and go get hotter. So right now,
Unity is the only accepted goal. And that's why we reject any talk of looking and walking and talking like PNP. We must walk and look and talk like an African. All right? Unity is the only accepted goal.
Right now, no way no more. You see that over the years, you know.
Yes.
Right? Because I just divide and rule, you know.
Yes.
Right? Everybody I look, they brainwash the people and say them can't have money in their pocket. So true that them say, if you want to go in politics, you must go in politics. But when you go in there, you get it wagga wagga. You understand me? So you see all them garrison and them things, right? Them things have eliminated people free.
Yes.
And go right over the world. We're not free. You're becoming like a prisoner mental.
No, a loot continue on, but victory is certain, my brother. Give thanks.
Yeah, man, I'm blessed.
All right.
Just feel the work and hold the whole IFM, yeah?
Yeah, man, give thanks. As Sheikh Anta Diop says, culture must above all play a protective role. It must serve to unite the group. It must serve as a cohesion of a group. And once it is attained, it will be difficult to divide and rule and to oppose African communities one against the other. You hear that, my brother Damian Crawford? Hotep?
Perfect love and black hearted greetings, Sister Garbo.
Give thanks, my brother, to Nastulen. Yes?
Blessed. Give thanks for the poetic word sound flowed for morning, you know?
Yes, man.
Give thanks for it all.
Yes, yes.
Especially our beloved sister.
Yes, Dr. Maya Angelou.
Give thanks, yes. You know, we had a struggle reach at this point in time. You know, we still have to continue talking, you know, but we're the struggle reaching point in time. We need more action than talking, you know, at home and abroad.
Yes, yes.
You know, today the 1st of June, we want to rightly hail and fraternally our beloved brethren. That's I right, the far right, blessed earth, my brethren. Have a blessed day.
Okay, it's Ivy's Earth Day today? Yeah, man, give thanks.
Today is his Earth Day.
Oh, Ivy.
The person who is there sitting inside you, he's in the sports world. I want to indulge a little and say, you know, in up to this point in time, do you still see it right for a cricket team, a sports team that defends us as African people to still bear the name West Indies? How do you view that? Don't you think that it's time for that name to be rid of? What is your views, my brethren? We hang up and listen.
All right, thanks for calling.
Perfect, love.
All right, Roger Haskell. Yeah.
Well, it's a tricky one. I mean, over the years, you know that the region has been called the West Indies, and the inhabitants of this region were always the West Indians.
Well, until Columbus called them so.
Right, yes, from that point of view.
Yeah.
I am not a fan of us being called West Indians either. I don't know how we'll ever correct that one because of how the team has been placed into history.
It would need a CARICOM intervention.
Yes.
And then a CARICOM from under the
But I'm
feet.
definitely not a fan. But for me, I just say, boy, you know, the Caribbean.
Let's go to the phone lines. Turn the radio down. Hotep? Yes, your radio is on. You're on, but your radio is on. Hotep?
Hotep Kakabu?
Yes, man. Hotep.
One thing I've been praying for a long time is for Running African to have a repeat broadcast.
A repeat broadcast?
Yes, it is such an important program, Kabu, and some ordinary Jamaicans are just not getting it at this hour, and some of the big shots are not getting it, and we need to penetrate a wider community right here in Jamaica, even though it's international, I know.
Well, I don't know. We have one of the highest listenerships on radio. I think anywhere you move it from now, you're in danger of losing some of that. But we do already have some of the highest listenerships here, and we don't do repeats necessarily on Area FM because we believe in keeping it fresh.
Okay, one other thing.
We don't. Yeah, it's not a company policy to repeat broadcasts.
I see, but I see that it's a much more important program than some programs on other stations that are repeat.
Well, thank you for that. But stations will repeat programs for many reasons, including economic cost factors and so on.
I see.
At the minute, we are not considering that. But thank you very much. We appreciate the context in which that was said and understand where it's coming from.
And bless you and thanks.
Yeah, man. Give thanks. All right, we are taking your telephone calls at 974-5079, 5051, 5043, and 1-888-991-4152. The numbers to call. Uncle Jasaneb, Life, Prosperity, and Health. As we take your telephone calls, Hotep.
Hotep, Sister Kabu.
Hotep.
Blessed love and greetings.
Yes, to you too.
I want to congratulate you first on the wonderful work that you are doing over the years. And I've been an avid listener over the years, and I think it's the first time I'm calling, but there's one thing I've always had in my thought is that I always wish we could change some more the names, and I see you went ahead and make a headlong strong way with that.
Yes.
Like we really all need to drop off the Jamaicanization that the other Antos, if we can use the word, the Jamaicanization of them.
Yes.
Give them colonial names.
Yes.
So we're going to ask other ones to look into that and see how...
It's a process, my brother. It's a process of self-reclamation and coming... I mean, I'm still on that journey because it also means how you dress. It means how you present yourself. And that is why what Damian Crawford was saying would have made so much sense if it was couched within the context of ourselves as a people and not within the context of ourselves as divisive gangs.
True. I'm calling from Maroon Town in St. James.
Yes.
I want to say, happy or strong to Rasa Vitafari.
Yes.
Wherever he is. I say roar, shout out to my family, the Nyabingi family in Pittsburgh, all of us,
give thanks.
Blessed earth strong and be Rastafari live it.
Most definitely to Rasa and the family. Give thanks, my brother. All right, we're going to go to a break. And Roger, I know you're going to be wrapping up with us at this point. If any calls come in for sports, I'll take them for you. But we take a break. So this is it. This is the theme. Kanaka Brasilia returns next week in a pre-recorded format. But by then, we should know what. What should we know by then?
You mean in terms of the
when is the whole thing starting?
When it started, the event?
Mm-hmm. The premiere.
In
Ultimate.
June 12th.
All right, so by the 8th, you're inside of the Africa Forum, Running African. And you might have heard that the Minister of Tourism, that's Wickham McNeil, made an announcement on, this is last week actually, about improving Jamaica's beaches. We're going to be talking about that. We were scheduled to speak with Shahini Robinson to get her response on that, but haven't been able to do so. As a matter of fact, she did call in to say that she wouldn't be able to do that interview this morning. We're scheduled to speak at 9, just around 9. But we will still tell you what the announcement was, and if we have a time, you can give me a quick call to tell me what you think about all of that right after this.
Western Union, moving money for better. The time by Western Union is
now 9:33 inside of the Africa Forum, Running African. Uncle Jasaneb, Life, Prosperity, and Health. We learned that a few weeks ago, and I think if we use these words more often, then we'll be more comfortable speaking in many, many different African tongues. Listen, you know, as much as we'd want to learn one African language, and I think it is right that we do, our situation is critical, and there's a sense of urgency. So as many words that we can learn from as many languages from the continent of Africa that we can, start putting them in your day-to-day conversations. Learn the simple ones. Hello, good morning, how are you, thank you, greetings, you know, welcome, and so on. Thank you very much. For example, asante sana. Asante sana is thank you very much in Kiswahili. Asante sana is something we can. Mungu akimjalia. Mungu akimjalia means God willing. You know how every time we hear something or somebody says something to us, we say, yeah, you know, I'm going to do that tomorrow, you know, God willing. Well, we can still say, we're going to do that tomorrow, and then we say, Mungu akimjalia. Mungu akimjalia, right? I usually say inshallah, but that's Arabic. But yet, it's still better than English. So, you can also say, thank you very much, asante sana. You know, let's learn some words as we go along. All right, African words. We have been talking a lot about the need for Marcus Garvey Institute, and I'm really very serious about this, and especially because I've been doing so much research on China and China in Africa. We're told now that the master's program, and there's a master's program being offered by China to African students, and scores of African students are heading to China to do this master's program. Thing though, and others too, the thing that's coming out of this though, is that Africans, continental Africans, Chinese, Europeans, and so on, all those persons who are doing this master's program are saying this is the first time that we are being taught about Africa in a positive way. This course is being offered in China. That is something. We hear about the Confucius Institute at the University of the West Indies. The Confucius Institute is, you know, on many, many universities across continental Africa and across the world. And it teaches Mandarin. You can go and learn Mandarin. We have one here in Jamaica, Confucius Institute. And I'm thinking, ain't nothing wrong with that. Fine, I'd go there and learn Mandarin if I was living in Kingston. I would go. Wish they'd come out here and teach Mandarin. But we're saying that above and beyond that, understanding ourselves, understanding who we are, and talking about development and nation building, we have to consider our own African institutes. Whether it's an African institute or a Marcus Garvey Institute, which knows that it's a Pan-African institute, which teaches an African language or two. I know that many people are quite willing to do that. And this is something that the University of the West Indies and others should be considering offering and doing here. It is late in the day when Mwalimu Marcus Messiah Garvey has been identified as one of the greatest philosophers of the 20th century, that we do not have a Marcus Garvey Institute at the University of the West Indies. Something is very, 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 very wrong with our way. Actually pointed out that the government is to spend approximately $252 million this fiscal year on improving 6 beaches for public access. The move, he says, is part of an overall initiative to develop at least 1 beach in each parish for Jamaicans. The minister also revealed that work has started on these parks, with the one at Burwood Beach in Trelawney being the most advanced. Let me see if I have that.
Typically, they will provide the following facilities: children's play areas, seating with tables, picnic areas and gazebos, restrooms and changing room facilities, adequate parking, lifeguard towers, and utilities, running water, electricity, etc.
All right, so that's a Minister Wickham McNeil talking about what the beaches would look like.
They're spending $252 million this fiscal year on improving its beaches and the public access. And the move is part of an overall initiative, he says, to develop at least one beach in each parish for Jamaicans. It is being undertaken by the Ministry of Tourism and Entertainment in collaboration with the Tourism Entertainment Fund, the Urban Development Corporation of the National Environment and Planning Agency. Portfolio Minister Wicker McNeil made the announcement as he delivered the presentation in the 2014-2015 sectoral debate in the House of Representatives. He noted that the initiative is to ensure that Jamaicans are able to enjoy their patrimony through access to the beach. He says that, and I quote, "We're now implementing a program where at least one beach in every parish and multiple in some will be transformed to make quality recreational spaces available to the public, residents and visitors alike. And these will operate at the best international standards," end quote. Minister McNeil informed that the improved beaches will have, as you heard in the clip, children's play area, seating with tables, picnic area and gazebos, restrooms and changing room facilities, adequate parking, lifeguard towers and utilities such as water and electricity. The minister revealed that work has started on these parks and Burwood Beach is the one that is most advanced. He said that Providence Beach in Montego Bay is at the tendering stage, while design work is now being completed on the Norman Manley Beach Park in Negril. Also identified for similar upgrading are Great Bay at Treasure Beach in St. Elizabeth, Salem in St. Anne and Boston in Portland. Dr. McNeil said the ministry in partnership with NEPA and TPDCO will be identifying and securing leases for additional beaches in an ongoing program. He said that it is an imperative that suitable quality space for recreation must be made available for Jamaica. Dr. McNeil also announced the resuscitation of the Rest Stop program in that presentation in Parliament. On the surface of it, it looks good. On the surface, just listening, critical thinking reveals a whole lot more. At least one beach for public access in each parish in a country where parishes on the coast may have 20 beaches or more. What will happen to those? St. Anne, for example. There's so many beaches in St. Anne. We're hearing about the Salem. We want to know what are government's plans for Little Duns River. We want to know about access to the beaches that have been cordoned off by hotels. Because it's one thing to provide a one beach in a parish for access. We already fighting and struggling with that. And as pretty as it sounds, as if it might look, thank goodness that you're going in the right direction. You do 1, you do 2, you do 3, you do 4. So that it's a step in the right direction. The problem, though, is that what has not been said, what is not being said in this is what bothers me. Number one, all those beaches that have been acquired illegally, we're saying, because you can't just acquire government water all of your own. And if you acquire the beach, I think one of the things that we have to be very clear on is that regardless of whether or not they say there's no high water or low water mark, we still must have access to the water. And we must find a way, whether we're coming in from the sea or we're coming in from the air, but we must have access to the water. And what we have in Jamaica is a situation where all of the beaches, 99.9% of them on the coast, have been sold off, hawked off, siphoned off by hotels and conglomerates and private people who own an entire beach for themselves, just walk down from them balconies onto an entire beach, and we're talking about expatriates. And this is not xenophobia. This is telling it like it is, because we must not be afraid to speak truth to power. So, Minister McNeil, what you have said, this is a smoke screen. It is diverting the attention of Jamaicans away from the real issue. We will not settle for one beach per parish. We will not settle for that. One thing we know, having listened to the minister, is that the struggle continues, but more than continues, it now has to be intensified. Why are the streets so silent in the face of oppression? Why are our public spaces so silent in the face of oppression? So we want to know from the minister, what do you mean when you say one beach per parish? And who do you expect that to serve? That's the first thing. The second thing we want to know, what about all those beaches that are now in the hands of hoteliers? Thirdly, we want, and then secondly, part two, we want to talk about access. Access. Do you understand that this is about access? It's about inclusion as opposed to exclusion. This is about the ability to walk onto a beach, which is a public space. We also want to talk about the Beach Control Act. And now that you have made this point, what about the consultation that NEPA promised? That they would go across the island and hold consultation with people about what the Beach Control Act should look like. We want to talk about that. We are talking about public access, Mr. Minister. We are not talking about government handing out anything to us. We don't want no patrimony. We don't want no handout. We want what is rightfully ours. Access to land. Because this is a bigger picture, you know. This is not just about the beach. This is access to land in Jamaica, and the extent to which land ownership remains in the hands of a few, and the rest of us must wallow in dirty water. Dirty is a good word too, you know. We're going to use it very often now. Thank you, Damian, for that word. All right, so that we still have questions. This is piecemeal. Beaches to be improved for public access. This is piecemeal. This is a smoke screen. This doesn't go far enough. This is telling us what we would rather not hear. You know, and we're not going to jump up and clap and applaud and dance and put on grass skirts and sing for the tourists as they come in, because you have finally decided that you're going to upgrade one beach for each parish. How many beaches in Jamaica? How many beaches? How many do we have access to? How many do you continue to sell off? What does that mean for beaches that people have been using for decades upon decades upon decades, which the UDC, we should be serving the people, taking from the people? We want to have a talk about this. We are not convinced, and this is not enough. This doesn't go far enough. This, I say, step in the right direction, because at least you're thinking and at least you're responding as a government to the issues being brought to the fore by the people. But it doesn't go far enough. Stop way too short. We're talking about public access right now, where imaginary lines are drawn in the sea, and security guards with 20/20 vision can see those imaginary lines and are told to stop us Jamaicans if we are not wearing our pass apartheid-like, that we are actually staying at this hotel, regardless of how we are coming into the beach, regardless of how we're coming into the water. That's what we want to talk about. We want to talk about inclusion, and we want to talk about access, and we want to talk about the extent to which the private sector, which hoteliers and private entities who have come into Jamaica are oppressing the citizens, the residents of the areas they go into, in terms of taking away from them access to public spaces. This is what we're talking about. It's a much bigger picture, and the tourism ministry must deal with this, but it has to be a joined up approach. It's not just about tourism. Who is the head of the ministry of the people? That is the ministry I want to talk to. The ministry representing the people of Jamaica. What is the name of that ministry? Does it exist? That's a ministry that needs to work with the tourism ministry now to say how this is to be done. So, Ministry of the People of Jamaica, Minister of the People, that is a minister I want to talk to and to hear from. By the way, that's the bottom line. All right, serious business. We're remembering our founder, Carl Young, transcended June 10. We're remembering him. You know, that lots of talk about Sudan and the medical doctor, the woman who was scheduled to be hanged in Sudan because they say that she changed religion. She's a medical doctor. Her husband is a biochemist. They don't look like the typical African that you'll hear from Sudan. And so there's a lot of outcry about it. And yes, we are joining that outcry. What we need to know, though, is that there are many women like her across the continent of Africa, especially in the Islamic states. Because the worst thing that could have happened to Africa was Islam. The worst thing that could have happened to the continent of Africa were the Arabs. And the worst religion that could have set, well, Christianity too, but one of the worst things that could have happened to Africa is Islam. And so this is an everyday occurrence. This is one woman out of many women, and our response cannot be about one woman. It has to be about the many. In Nigeria, we hear that the girls have been sighted. We have to look again and look again and then look again at what's really happening in Nigeria. Okay? My sister Bassett Sekmetai Bingi, greetings my sister. See you on Facebook making your posts. Appreciate that as usual. This is how we're saying goodbye. We are making way for the big A inside of a Sunday sunshine. Got a few more minutes to go, and so we're going to be taking some music in those few minutes. And just some music in those few minutes. And then we'll see you on the other side on Tuesday and then again on Sunday. Mungu Akim Jalia. You know, I was just about to say inshallah, and then I thought no, but I should set the example. So God willing, Mungu Akim Jalia. We understand that there has been another Chinese premier has visited Ethiopia, Nigeria, Angola, Kenya, and the AU headquarters. So these are some stuff that we should be paying attention to. And that during the visit, the premier vowed to earmark half of China's foreign aid to Africa without preconditions, and stated that the relationship between China and Africa is one marked by shared interests, common development, and cultural exchanges. You know what? For those of us who are dragging our feet in this part of the world, we better run go to Africa before it is too late. This is serious. During the visit, the Chinese premier vowed to earmark half of China's foreign aid to Africa without preconditions, and stated that the relationship between China and Africa is one marked by shared interests, common development, and cultural exchanges. He proposed 4 principles, namely, treating each other with full sincerity and as complete equals, enhancing solidarity and mutual trust, jointly pursuing inclusive development, and innovating on practical cooperation, which will guide China-Africa relations to a new era. He also identified 6 areas: industry, finance, poverty, that's poverty reduction, ecological protection, people-to-people exchanges, and peace and security for the two sides to intensify China-Africa cooperation. In the area of industrial cooperation, China and Africa can increase the trade volume between the two sides, and China's direct investment in Africa to US $400 billion and US $100 billion respectively by 2050. To achieve the alignment of industrial development strategies between China and Africa, China will promote the development of labor-intensive manufacturing sectors, work for the transformation and upgrading of energy and resources industries, and get actively involved in highway, high-speed railway, telecommunications, electric power, and other projects in Africa. So that's China in Africa. Also, quickly, just to tell you that the African Development Bank and China have sealed a $2 billion cooperation co-financing fund which seeks to mobilize resources to enhance development within Africa under the 10-year Africa Growing Together Fund, the AGTF project. Resources will reportedly be provided and used alongside the AFDB's own reserves to finance eligible sovereign and non-sovereign guaranteed development projects. These are some serious bits of information coming out of China and Africa. Africa-China relations are deepening in a way that we have never seen it before. And part of this deepening of relations between China and Africa means that the African diaspora is being left out of the African Renaissance. And we can sit by and talk about how bad Africa is, or we can become part of the African Renaissance. That is a challenge as we go forward.
Yeah, man, this is Clive, a.k.a. Chris Zogo, you know. Well, you can give me a minute to make a talk to your listeners, them. Yeah, man, this, I got the Muta listeners from Jamaica, US, Britain, and the world, you know. Especially the one them that on YouTube and BS Roman channel. You know, for over 20 years, Muta, I highlight problem them and I get solution. But, you know, I see black people, but Muta alone can't do it alone, you know. But all we do, as them listening, we do, we talk and we complain amongst ourselves and pass blame and we the government, white man, rich man, and Jah and Jesus to solve them. Black people, if you know, say, and a responsibility that other people solve them problem, you know. If you know, say, the man we have been put by his neck, now take it off and let you lick it off and pump him in the face and step in a thing short. Government has do good, you know. Because you see them a drive Pajero and the regular artists, them alright, because them don't make it. And you see them a pop champagne, flat BMW, and a be a big mansion, but, you know, them not be no factory for employ, you know. The problem that I face working and poor class don't affect them. I can't believe how fool on the be, you know, they're wait for same people who cause the problem to fix it. We complain about foreigner buy up Jamaica, but instead we buy up Jamaica, we buy up foreign goods. They don't know where the things said and get the money from. I see your money when you buy them goods and use back and come buy up Jamaica to use against you. We complain about Monsanto, but we shop at the supermarket all the time. And we don't even try to create our own supermarket that we sell our own organic food. So we leave it up to them to solve our problem with them create. Marcus Garvey say, if we can't do what other races do, you know, we don't deserve to die. And that is exactly what happened to me right now. If we can't own the wholesale like the China man, we don't deserve to stay poor and jobless. If we can't own the multinational like the white man, we will stay at the bottom of the political and economic system and big IMF. We can't own the big farm like Monsanto. We deserve to die from cancer and death of famine. Muta give no solution to the problem. But Muta, you alone don't have the money to solve the big problem, yeah. So if we put the money together, we can create the big man, big corporation, or big business that will represent our interests and agenda to work to solve our problem. I say, me don't say already, you know, if 1,000 Muta listener put $1,000 US, that's $1 million US, 100 million Jamaica can set a foundation, start a business. We are going to invest in building and expanding black business like farm, supermarket, car creator, transportation, etc., which will provide wealth and jobs amongst our own by ourselves. Talking and complaining is good, you know, because they highlight the problem. But it's time to build business and structure to solve the problem that we complain about so much. Every race have them structures set up. So this is why you can see Chinese come from China, set up shop, and stock it out with all Chinese meal. All a black man know to do is just be a buyer. You can't even blame the Chinese, you know, because they're not doing it for yourself anyways. My solution, I know the be all and all, but it's one thing that is in your power to do and can create a system that will outlast us all alive now, you know. Muta is the only man in Jamaica I feel that is trustworthy. That is why I'm willing to invest $1,000 US in him to set up a business to build our system. There must be at least, 1,000 of him listeners who believe in real self-reliance. If not, I guess Black Jamaican is doomed to want to be beggars. $1,000, I don't know, why? Because, Jamaicans spend more than that on ganja, liquor, bleaching cream, clothes and car and big house, etc. In overconsumption. If you don't have 1,000, then you know what? Can't get 10 people to join you at one then. So we want all the serious Muta listeners them to email muta@iratum.net. Call up and tell them say, you're ready to invest in him to build a phone system. So that me want to the people in Muta.
Blessed man, give thanks. That sounds serious. That sounds very, very serious. Very serious. I could have never run from that suggestion. Believe you.